Good evening. Welcome to the San Ramon Valley Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting for this evening, September 20th. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'd like to start by having our board members introduce themselves. Our student member.
Hello, my name is Anya Ayapan. I'm currently serving as the student board member to the SRVUSD district.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I'm Susanna Ordway, trustee area 4.
Good evening, everybody. Shelley Clark, trustee for Area 2.
Hello and welcome. Rachel Hurd, trustee Area 5.
Ken Mintz, current president and trustee for Area 1. Laura Brad, unfortunately, had a death in her family and is not joining us this evening. During this evening's closed session, the board voted, change this a little bit. The board appointed the following staff effective immediately on a 4-0 vote. Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations will be Stella Kemp, and Director of Technology, Kelly Hilton. And we look forward to both of them starting, I didn't get that, immediately. Okay. Next on our agenda, acceptance of minutes. 7.1 is acceptance of the minutes from August 16th, a special. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get to that point, we had scheduled a separate second closed session that was to occur at 6:55. Unfortunately, the first closed session went a little bit longer. We wanted to get this meeting started, so we're moving that closed session to the end of this meeting. So we have a special minutes from a special meeting on the 16th. Can I get a motion?
I'll move approval of those.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. We'll work together. The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Ayapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. And 7.2 is the minutes of August 16th, the regular meeting. Any comments, questions, submissions? Seeing none?
Move approval.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Ayapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 8.0 is the agenda approval and consent action agenda. 8.1, acceptance of the open session agenda.
I'll move the motion.
Thank you.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Ayapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Item 8.2 is approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of a number of items that are considered routine in nature and are handled normally by a single vote without further discussion. Unless there's something that a member of the public, the board, or staff would like to pull from the consent agenda, and we handle as a separate discussion and vote. Is there anything from staff to be pulled from the consent agenda? Anything from staff you wish, from the board? No? Okay, I do have a couple of cards asking that we pull items 12.4 and 12.5. So I'd like to move the two of those items to the end of action items, so they will become action items 10.13 and 10.14. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval of consent as amended.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Ayapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay, next we have some student recognition, item 9.1. It's been an exciting couple of weeks here. As I think you all know, I'm sure the superintendent's going to talk more about it, but we have 4 of our schools that were named as National Blue Ribbon Schools. That's 4 out of 29 across the entire state of California. Just a tremendous accomplishment. In addition, a number of semifinalists for the National Merit semifinalists, one of the largest numbers in the state. Just an incredible accomplishment by our students and our staff. But this evening, we'd like to recognize some of our students for some other purposes. Let me pull that up. First, hopefully they're here. I'd like to call up Arnav Verma. Arnav, step up to the front for a second. Arnav is being recognized as being selected as the student board member for the 2023 California State PTA Board of Managers. He's with Monmouth High School, and his role is to share student perspectives with state PTA leaders and to inform students at the unit level of the goals and activities of the California State PTA. Arnav, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about your role?
Yeah, thank you so much. So as the student board member on the board of managers for the PTA, I'm responsible for representing 6.3 million Californian students from K through 12, and I really represent and arbitrate for their needs and wants. And so my role on the board is to provide the student perspective and give a different opinion on issues regarding student engagement and like student welfare. In addition, I'm currently working on the PTSA, on the captive board to develop a financial literacy position such that PTA can sponsor financial literacy bills. And so that's a position statement that I'm working on right now on the board.
Very good. Well, congratulations, and we're looking forward to some great things from you. I'm sure the PTA is looking forward to your participation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mintz.
And secondly, we have 3 students who are being recognized as being winners of the Student 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline Art Contest, sponsored by the Discovery Center, API Coalition, and Assemblymember Rebecca Barraquejan's office. So if they don't mind, if they're here, stepping forward, Patricia Liu, is she here? Hi, from Ceremon Valley High School, who was a first place winner. I'll just read what I have here. Chose to participate. She chose to participate in this contest opportunity because as someone with several teenage friends who struggle with mental health, she wanted to spread awareness on this new accessible service that would help many, save many lives. Very good. Why don't you stand there for 1 second? Next, we have Joanna Jang from Iron Horse Middle School, who was a 3rd place winner. She wanted to participate in this art contest to help spread the word about California's new 988 suicide hotline. She thought it'd be a perfect idea to use her artistic skills and create something that will spread awareness about a good cause. It is so important to inform young people about any suicide prevention resources that they can call for help. And finally, and I apologize if I mumble your name a little bit, but Shavante Prabhakaram from Montevideo Elementary was also a 3rd place winner. And Shavante participated in the contest because this is for the noble cause to serve humanity and feels happy to be part of the awareness program. Moreover, she loves art and feels art can send a strong message to the people that life is more important. And congratulations to all 3 of you for your participation in this very important program and delivering a message to particularly the youth in our about this very important 988 service. Congratulations. And we'd like is for the three of you and Arnav to step forward. We'd like to take a picture with you. Okay, we have a speaker on this. Chai Nasaboli.
Yes.
Aboli.
Yes. Let me spell that. CHY, Chai. Nasabuli, Nasabulle. I am up here because I want to ask the district about how is it that the taxpayers are paying for education, but more and more our students' rights are being appropriated by the student representatives that are being selected by you, the teachers, as well as the politicians in Sacramento. I don't understand why that when it comes to mental health, it's Asian girls. And when it comes to representing the student body, then it is someone who represents, did you say 6 point something million? Who is appropriating my students' rights by these people? I'm not saying they are not excellent, but I'm wondering why is it that in a democratic society such as ours, that if I believe in something else, then I'm being called a fascist, a racist, a whatever. And then you have all these student representatives as young as in elementary school that is representing people.
No, excuse me,
students.
but these are
I'm not Helen.
these are
I am
award
Chai,
these
just
are
like you.
award these
You
are award winners.
Just imagine if you can bully an adult like me. I am still talking, sir. I have still 1 minute and 40 seconds
On
left.
the topic of the
It
students
is on
being
the topic.
recognized.
Why is it? I'm not saying they're not recognizable. I'm saying, why is it that they are being appointed for the position? And how are they going to represent my students who may be politically a dissident in their opinion? How is he going to represent my student who thinks differently than him? You guys have appointed a bunch of teen council members that are meeting in the city hall right now, representing all the student body as if they are elected by their peers. I bet that none of the regular students know that their rights are appropriated by these students in Sacramento, in God knows where. I mean, like, why are you guys doing this? When I grew up in Southern California, when it was a Republican-reigned California, it was not like this. Everyone had a voice. Our voice is ours. I refuse to have my students' voice be appropriated by these students who are obviously appointed by you guys, and sneeze away.
Just to be clear, the student who you're referring to was appointed by the PTA, not by the school district. And the student group that you're talking about is from the city of San Ramon, not the school board. Moving on to item 9.2, school highlight, Neil Armstrong Elementary School. And Christine.
Sure, thank you. I'd like to invite up Principal Gagnon to share a presentation with us about his school. Neil Armstrong.
All right. Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Malloy, staff, and public. My name is Jared Gagnon, principal at Neil Armstrong Elementary School, and it is an honor and privilege to share a little bit about our students with you today. Anyone that has met me knows I can rave about my staff and our students for quite some time, but I will work to keep it a little bit brief. And at Neil Armstrong, we really focus on the social, emotional well-being of our students. We work about diversifying our curriculum and equity and having all of our students represented. But tonight, I wanted to speak with you about deep learning and innovation, one of our three prongs of our district vision, and specifically our makerspace. So our makerspace is our hands-on learning lab that we really believe in and spend a lot of time in, and it really emphasizes that word of innovation. It does give students who need something a little bit different, a little bit more creative, that chance to thrive. An activity that we did as a staff at the beginning of this school year was to talk about one word or one idea that you would want to leave your students with, or you would want your students to leave you with. And what is something that you want from them? We want empathy. We want communication, kindness, creativity. Nowhere in there was, I want them to leave me with math. Although that's important, we want them to be people. We want them to be better people. We want them to work together to celebrate their successes and find their passions. So as a staff, these are things that we believe in. And really the makerspace gives an opportunity for all of our students to enhance those skills and to work on them. Our makerspace was actually built out in 2019, built by students and by parents. These are some pictures from that day back then. And we couldn't have done it without our parents' support. It was a full day build where we built the materials that the students still use today. And the students, it built a sense of pride. We couldn't have done it without our partners in the Education Foundation and with Raft. But it does bring a sense of pride to our students and to our community. It brings a sense of pride to students who may otherwise feel unsuccessful. They may feel like they don't achieve in math. They don't achieve in ELA as much as their peers, but it gives them an opportunity to, with hands-on learning, to really build and to explore design challenges and do things that are creative while attributing that to learning objectives. So we'll talk a little about the design challenge in just a moment. But this is, like I talked about, something we've partnered with Raft and our Education Foundation at the district level, as well as our own academic boosters, supports this mission and our cause for our students to focus on that hands-on learning. So the makerspace, we propose a design challenge to the students. Something as simple as build the tallest tower you can with no tape. And they go and they design, and they all look different. They all are unique in design, and you'll get to see that in just a moment. Something I'm really excited about is actually Raft is partnering with our parents to have a STEM build night for our students and their parents to come together, because at our last year's open house, our most popular space on campus was our makerspace. It was packed. Kids love it. They are enthusiastic about it. And so we are actually bringing their parents in to work with them. And we're going to have a K2 focus and then a 3 through 5 focus so that they can really work with their parents to show them how they learn, think, design, outside the box thinking. You can see some of the tables that they built. You can see one of our towers with no adhesives, and the students use materials that are in the space to see what they can do. This one was we wanted them to achieve something over 30 inches. And these are two in that picture, third graders, building a tower as they see fit, and they all do something different. And so this is just a little bit of one activity that we've done, but there are many more, and you'll get to see a little bit about it in just a moment. I could talk to you about our makerspace and cool things that I've been seeing in there for a while, but I wanted you to hear from our students.
The things I like about this makerspace is you have to go through all these buckets and figure out what materials you need to do to complete the activity that your teacher wants you to do, like a space for the ocean out of random materials, and then do these projects so you put them around the room, and then people come into your room and they see the things that you made.
It explores creativity, and there's something for everyone. Creativity is important for everyone, everything, and that it's one of the most important skills to learn, but you're born learning it. That everyone can do anything. They don't just have to do one thing.
This was build a tower that held the chicken with no adhesives. And look at his face. He's so excited.
that we can make stuff, use different materials, and just hang out with our friends and work together. That's what I really love about the makerspace.
We do love hands-on learning. We really thrive in that environment. Go. One of them you got to see, they had to build a car that they could pull that would be kind of a trailer of another car. They love it. And they get to think outside the box, and they get to collaborate with their colleague or their classmates. Sometimes we have buddy classes go, so you'll see a 4th grade class in there with a 1st grade class, and they are so excited. It's an even playing field. No idea is better than anyone else's, and it really gives our students an opportunity to think outside the box and prepare them for the world that lies ahead. When there are no solutions, be creative, work together, and design. So just something I wanted to share with you, something good. I could share lots. I'm always happy to come back, but if there's any questions, thank you for your time, and we are proud to be Eagles.
Board members, any questions or comments?
No questions, just comment that thank you so much. I love watching, the video of the kids explaining to us what they love about the maker space and what they love to do. And we get to see a little bit of, what deep learning and innovation looks like. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I would also just love to comment on that. I'm in high school. It's only been a couple years since I graduated from elementary school. But I'll be honest, I don't remember too much of the classroom, the math lessons and the social science lessons. But what I do remember is the interactive Gold Rush project that we did, or the U.S. history interactives, creating a newspaper after we went to Camp Arroyo. All of these hands-on interactive projects, those are what I remember from elementary school. And those are the memories that really stuck with me. So I think this is an amazing initiative, and I hope to see this replicated at other schools. I think it's great. So,
Jared, I would just add first my thanks for you being here and sharing with us this evening. One of the things I find interesting is that as we've started to build some of these maker spaces in some of our, particularly the elementary schools, the space, I'm not sure if it's true in Neil Armstrong, but this was the space, the computer room before?
It was. We had a computer lab when I got to Neil Armstrong, but computers were everywhere. So it became a little bit more obsolete. So we redesigned the space. You got to see the buckets with different materials. So it was our old computer lab.
Perfect. Yeah. You played right into my question because, like I say, these were computer labs where students would have to come in to be able to get to the keyboard and learn computer skills. And as we've moved more and more towards into one-to-one computer to students and having computers available in their classrooms, it provided the space which in fact goes back to hands-on learning. And there's some of those things with some robotics and things like that, but it's amazing to walk into one of these spaces and seeing all those cubbies filled with just knickknacks. And for the students to have built the tables themselves and to use those tables and get them dirty and, really get down really heavy into really hands-on work, which is just tremendous opportunity for seeking curiosity and collaboration skills as well on some of these projects. So congratulations with that. We all look forward to seeing more of it going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, Shelley, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say I so appreciate your enthusiasm, and I've been on your campus and I've seen you interact with the kids, and I know how much they love you, and you do amazing things with them. And I also am so happy to see that we have places where our kids can go to be creative, because while we place such an emphasis on academics, which are very important, that other part of the brain for some of our students, especially future artists, musicians, visual artists, they need a place to be able to hone their skills also. And it also gives the kids a break from all of the academics that they do every day. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Moving on to item 9.3, the SRVUSD strategic direction. We've been hearing various reports from staff on our strategic directions, and this evening's focus is on our culture of responsiveness, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Malloy.
Thank you, President Mintz. This report is actually a little bit different than the other strategic reports you've received for the following reason. When we created our strategic directions, you will know that culture of responsiveness is one of the key elements, one of the ways in which we do our work. It has three components: how we communicate, how we engage our community so that we can learn, lead, and be influenced by them, and also how we provide service. And so the reason why this report is different is because we don't have baseline data on this particular area yet. Going forward, you will see this report every September, October, and every April, May is when we will do the survey. But what we'd like to do right away in the next month or so is to utilize existing meetings in the district, both at school level and at district level, as well as inviting anyone in our community who wishes to participate in this survey to come to a brief virtual meeting. And the purpose of using existing meetings or coming to a virtual meeting is because this is a very different kind of survey. And we know that the data we want to create, that baseline data, is the only way we can build our improvement plans. And so by using those existing structures, or by inviting anybody who's interested to a virtual meeting, we'll do a number of them at different times of day, then we can explain what the purpose is, we can explain what the survey is trying to do, and we can explain a little bit about the instrument that we are utilizing. But again, this will be the only year that we do a baseline gathering, and then in the same year, another gathering. Normally, it would just be once a year, and we'd like to build this into our process. So the purpose of tonight's report is to bring that back before you, explain the next steps, and to certainly be open to any insights or perspectives you might wish to share regarding this direction.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a question. How are we ensuring that we gather a broad spectrum of voices for this information to come to us?
The only thing that I know that we can do is engage as widely as we can to invite as many people who are interested to participate. One of the things that we're very conscious of is that we can only ask so many times. And if we are asking too many times, then we won't necessarily get the involvement. That's why we're being very careful about this particular one, because we are engaged, as you know, and we'll be bringing information back shortly in a strategic directions thought exchange where we're getting all kinds of insights. And that is actually a process that's intended to give us feedback regarding kind of everything. And we've had quite a large participation in that. But the only thing we can do is invite, and we can provide multiple opportunities. And I'm hoping that if anyone is maybe reticent to participate, or maybe doesn't yet have the interest, that we can show how we use the data. And even if the involvement isn't as great as we'd like at the beginning, over time, once that data is used and it's seen as meaningful, I'm hoping it would actually grow people's involvement. But we're going to do our very best to engage as widely as we can.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that the exchange is only a portion of our attempt to reach out to the community and the entire community. Because I believe we want to hear from folks who don't have students currently in our schools as much as our families with students, because they represent a large portion of our population as well. And what happens in our schools affects them. Any other comments or questions? I do have a speaker card on this topic specific to the superintendent's remarks about culture of responsiveness. Ms. Nazabuli.
It's Chai Nasabuli. So I want to encourage and advise all the students out there, if you're listening, and your parents, be wise. These are movements of communism that were already practiced in China by Mao Zedong. This was back in their Cultural Revolution, quote unquote, called class enemy identification. Mao Zedong literally offered everyone to criticize him, and then he would identify them to be ostracized later. You just mentioned that you're going to have a survey. We already know the culture in our government right now is one that persecutes any body or person who has political disagreement with them. Even the former president's house can be raided. I can't even say anything without being ridiculed, sneezed on, or called a name that doesn't belong to me. So please take it from me. I already know that I could be murdered, shot when I go home. My food often has been mixed with different things already because of my outspokenness and the community of my peers who are from Taiwan. We speak up because we are trying to save California and America from becoming communist country. And I just want to encourage all the students out there, do not listen to these adults. They're lying to you. They're giving you a chance to disclose yourself, and then they will ostracize you. Learn from the past during election. How many teens, when they were out there voicing their political voices, they couldn't go to college, or a university who had admitted them dropped them. Our country is no longer a democratic country. So be very aware what they're trying to do. They're trying to identify you. Thank you.
Helen, I'm going to continue to ask that you stay on topic, please. This is a work meeting. Next item, 9.4, annual report to the community. Again, Dr. Malloy.
So President Mintz and board, the annual report to the community is actually not new information for you. What this report is attempting to do is to compile all of the strategic information that you have seen over the last while, and it intends to put it together in one place so that when you might be out in our community speaking to the public, when our staff is engaging different partners and groups, we've pulled everything together in a high-level fashion that does have more strategic documents that can back up what you're seeing here. So it has descriptions of our district, it has facts and figures about who we are, it speaks about you, it provides an opportunity of a message from me, and then it goes into the strategic directions. But again, just at the high level, some of the key actions, some of the key outcomes. Later tonight, you're going to hear about actually very soon, next agenda item, you are going to hear about the dashboard, which completes, if you will, kind of the strategic vehicle that we have been building. And again, anybody who wants to know more, electronically, there are links on our site. This will live there so that if you want to say, where are they getting those actions and outcomes from, you click on that strategic report and it actually takes you to the report that we brought to you at whatever month in the last while that speaks to that particular strategic direction. It's meant more to tell a story. It's not meant to tell everything, but it's allowing for us to share and then direct for those who want more, where to go. But it also helps all of us who are engaging our community in a lot of different ways to have some materials to assist us in the process. This is new since I've been here. I haven't brought this to you before, but every fall you can expect this again as a compilation of the work that has happened in the previous months prior to you seeing this. So that is basically, President Mintz, what this is all about.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from board members? I would just add that you know, it used to be as more people were reading newspapers, we would have a quarterly insert into the paper about what was going on in our schools, and we've kind of lost that ability. So for a lot of folks, the way they find out is by having to take a direct action and going to the website. And we've made some improvements lately. I want to thank our communications team for all the work that they've been doing on our website, but it still forces you to make the effort to go to find out more. So I'm really pleased with this kind of information, and hopefully it'll create the basis for us to be able to get more information out to the community about what's going on in our district. I have a speaker card on this item from Ms. Nazaboli.
So
And the
try not to.
topic is this annual report to the community.
I am not new at this, so please have respect for my wisdom and my intelligence and stop calling me name that's not me and criticizing me, my behavior before I even start behaving. Can we agree on that? Thank you. This report is an absolute shame. You never reported anything to the community. The annual report is to the community, and maybe with all due respect, Dr. Malloy, you're from a different country. So maybe you're not used to how we do things here. We have never had a report like this. You disclosed nothing. You're supposed to disclose our academic fitness. How are kids doing in school? We don't know. Are we getting enough teachers? We don't know. I know one is being fired today. You deliberately tried to not have public, knowledge about it by moving it to the end when you actually called it at 6:55. We have a business superintendent who's leaving the district. We have a technology director who's leaving the district. You just hired two at the same time. Why? Those are things you're supposed to report to us. Where is your fiduciary duty? Completely nowhere to be found. Why can you do that? Oh, you know why? Because our district is now full of people who don't know what democracy is. Full of people who are used to people speaking for them. Full of people sneezing when other people are voicing their opinions and understanding of how things work in this country. Disrespect, indifference, aloofness are now our culture. Very responsive. This is truly a shame. If you have any conscience, if you're worth a recent increase that the taxpayer just gave you, please. Oh, by the way, for those people who want to become American citizens, you really need to get used to people having different opinions. Please, if you have any conscience worthy of the increase that taxpayer just gave you recently, would you kindly give us some kind of report of how our district is doing? After all, we're not owned by a certain country, certain group of PTAs, certain community, certain ethnic groups, certain Democratic Party. We are a district that is funded by all taxpayers, and we deserve to know. Thank you.
Once again, I'll ask that our speakers stick to the topic on the agenda. 2 points of clarification. One is the superintendent's report was part of our agenda packet, which is online and available prior to the meeting and during the meeting as well. The other thing is the other country that our superintendent is from is Ohio. Moving on to item 9.5, District Data Dashboard with Deb Pettish.
Mr. President, I need to say something. We have kids in this room. It is offensive. I come from Ohio. I worked in Canada, and none of it matters. I'm speaking, Mr. President, I speak to the board. I find it offensive. People are watching. People come from many different countries. We are inclusive. I am grateful that I had a diverse experience, and I just need you to know from me that students are watching, families are watching, and coming from another country, even though I am from Ohio, is not a problem. It is not negative. And I want my board to hear that because it was used in reference to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pettish.
Thank you so much, President Mintz. Good evening, trustees. I am here tonight to share with you an updated version of the SRVUSD data dashboard. So back in August at our last board meeting, we discussed the idea of a district-specific dashboard with the objective being to communicate progress to all of you, to our staff, to our community with regard to the progress on the goals that we are making that are contained within our strategic directions. So most of the information that I shared with you in August remains unchanged. So for example, as you can see on the screen here, and I believe it was in the packet as well, there are still 3 overarching categories for our district dashboard. Category 1, of course, is deep learning and innovation. Category 2, equitable, safe, and inclusive learning environments. And then category 3, organizational excellence. So if we start with the left-hand column, what you can see is that there are 3 dimensions here. So one dimension is college and career readiness. Another dimension is English language arts. And the third is mathematics. And so then you can see below each dimension are 1 or 2 indicators. And so you can see that the indicators for deep learning and innovation include increasing the use of deep learning strategies across our classrooms, co-designing a learning profile with our community, increasing overall CASP scores, in addition to decreasing the disparities of our CASP scores for our underserved populations. So we are still finalizing the baseline measurements along with the target goals for category 1. And this is due in part to the fact that the county just recently told us that we are allowed to share our CASP data with the community. And so even though it's technically won't be official until December, they did give us the green light to do that. So at the October board meeting, Kit Bragg, our new assessment director, will be providing that information for you, essentially an overview on our CASP data along with our Healthy Kids information. So in the middle column here, of course, for equitable, inclusive, and safe learning environments, we have 3 other dimensions. So of course, we've spoken a lot about the importance of social emotional well-being, student voice and agency, and then diversifying staff. So what you'll see here is that the indicators are really focused, and we talk so much about the importance, Jared mentioned it today in his presentation, but we talk often about the importance of our students' social emotional well-being. So that of course is a key component in this particular category. We also talk a lot about creating inclusive classroom experiences that provide students opportunities to meaningfully participate in their education. Hiring more staff of color and decreasing the percentage of employees of color who leave the district due to dissatisfaction. So I'm not necessarily going over every single indicator, but I wanted to point some key components out. So as you can see in this first dimension, social emotional well-being, that one of the indicators is to improve overall our students' social emotional well-being. So according to the California Healthy Kids Survey that we administer every year, including in the spring of 2022, 71% of our students indicated that they are doing well with regard to their social and emotional well-being, okay, from their perspective. Our goal, however, 71%, we realize the numbers could be lower. At the same time, that is not something that we are happy with. We need to improve those scores. So our goal over the next year is to increase it from 71% of students to 76% of students. And what that will bring us to is pre-pandemic levels. So it's a tall order. There's still a lot going on in the lives of our students, as we know, but that is a goal that we chose to focus on over the course of this school year. If we look at student voice and agency, you can see, and this one is near and dear to my heart, you can see that only 33% of our students overall feel that they're meaningfully participating in school activities. And as we know, and as research has shown, that if students have a say in their education, so what they're learning, how they're learning it, then they will not only be happier individuals, but they will be able to learn at deeper levels. And so it might not look like much, but our goal is to increase this number by 10% from 33 to 36. And then in terms of diversifying staff, and I want to give huge credit to our Human Resources Department, of course, led by Keith Rudzinski, and working alongside Melanie, Carrie, and Hong Yen. You can see that 42% actually of our new hires this year were people of color. And so you might say, oh, that's high. That's relatively high. That's a great number. And that's true. But with that being said, if you dig a little bit deeper and look into the amount of certificated staff that were hired, people of color, it's quite a bit lower, especially, when we're talking about our teachers, our counselors, our administrators. So that is an aspect that we need to continue to work on, which of course is why it's a goal. All right. And then our last category, again, and all of these categories are, of course, linked to our strategic directions. The last category is organizational excellence. So there's 3 dimensions. There's the stewardship of resources, the culture of responsiveness that Dr. Malloy talked about a few minutes ago, and then, of course, this idea of shared leadership. So indicators for this particular category include a positive certification on interim budget reports, increasing staff and parent satisfaction with regard to district and site responsiveness, and increasing the percentage of aspiring leaders in the district who complete an administrative credential program. So the indicators specifically that focus on the culture of responsiveness, again, Dr. Malloy alluded to this earlier, we will be doing focus groups and a survey in order to kind of ascertain where we are from a baseline perspective before we can create target goals in those particular areas. And then in terms of shared leadership, give huge kudos to Christine Huardo, who spearheaded an amazing leadership development program so that we can grow our leaders from within. So we can kind of have a pipeline or a stronger pipeline of individual staff members who are kind of ready to step up to that next level of leadership when those opportunities come about. So she's created a program, and the goal is to have at least 80% of staff who are chosen to join that program complete it, and then they will receive their administrative credential, and then ideally come to work for us as opportunities open. So in sum, we're really, really excited to share this with you tonight. I feel like this has provided my team, and if I could speak for Ed Services, a lot more direction in terms of the plans, right? So our professional development plan that we've created is directly linked to the indicators in this document. So we're really, really excited. With that being said, we also know that this is the first year that we've done anything like this, and that we have a lot to learn from all of you. We have a lot to learn from our community. We have a lot to learn from our staff in terms of how we can improve this process over time. So thank you.
And if I could just add 2 closing remarks. First of all, to Debbie Pettish and her team for leading this very significant project, which has been huge. And we are grateful to the work that you have led with Christine and the team, because it's really important for us. Secondly, and I think this is the part that will become our focus over the next number of months, there are many components to our strategic work. And when we aren't clear with our community about how it all fits together, there's confusion like we just heard. So to be very clear, when we bring you a strategic report connected to the strategic directions, and each month there'll be at least one, it is at that time where the dashboard will drive us. This dashboard will stay on our website. It'll be populated at certain times. But the strategic report will include what we're doing, why we're doing it, what goals we are intending to accomplish, and what our outcomes are. So that is what the community does get each month. And this is the last piece of the puzzle. Connecting it to what you saw from me earlier, those are just highlights. Those are not intended to be the actual deep report, even though the deep report will be connected to the highlights. So what our community needs, I think, a better understanding, because we need to do the better communicating, is it's a cycle of improvement that happens throughout the year. And in order for us to go deep, pick one pillar a month for the most part, so we can provide all of that information at that time. And we'll just keep continuing to listen and communicate, engage, listen, and communicate, so that we get to a place where the accountability that many in our community have been asking for, it's understood that that's what this is. And I'm not sure, frankly, and I'm going to put it out there, we've put some goals into this dashboard that are pretty industrious, especially since we're still coming out of the last 2 years. We're still putting a lot of things together again. But I'm confident that our amazing staff, working together with our parents who are partners, with our students who are our focus, we can get there. So that is our purpose. And again, Debbie and team, we're very grateful to all you've done to get us to this place.
Thank you both. Deb, if I can ask one question. You alluded to it on one of the items, but how did you your team come up with the targets? The one in question was, getting us to a pre-pandemic level. But I'm just wondering what the targets represent.
Thank you so much for asking that. We have had a lot of conversations, and I know Dr. Malloy is chuckling over there, because we've had a lot of really, really healthy debates across my C&I team, across Ed Services, across cabinet level, about really what's most appropriate. Because we want to be able to stretch ourselves, but we don't want to make the goals so unattainable, right? And so for most of these, we went back to pre-pandemic levels. So we figure if by the end of the year, we can get back to pre-pandemic levels for whether it's through Healthy Kids or CASP data, then we will be on kind of sure footing, for lack of a better term, in order to move forward and continue to make those increases. Some of them were, and then if we didn't necessarily have information on pre-pandemic levels, so for example, when you see decreased disparities in student social emotional well-being, we didn't necessarily collect that when we last did the survey. And so then our goal tended to be 10%, which, as Dr. Malloy said, that's a big increase for a school year coming out of a pandemic. But we're confident that we can make progress towards these goals.
And I'll add, President Mintz, that the reason we were debating professionally and healthily is because the concept of targets, we don't want it to be unrealistic, but we also know that the improvements happen in classrooms and schools supported by the conditions that the system creates. So it's hard to figure out how to make them as scientifically accurate as we want them to be. And my hope is that, we exceed what we've stated, but we have to be as realistic and as reasonable as we can. But we're actually going to learn this part as we go, because there's a lot of debate in the education research around the concept of setting targets.
Yeah, I would think the other aspect of that is not just setting targets, but the actions that lead to those results, and being able to qualify and quantify those actions. What is it that we're actually doing that's different that would lead students to feel more emotionally well-being, on the survey, for instance. The other thing is the evaluation that comes with those reports that demonstrate, okay, we have the number, but, how do we actually do? So, and be prepared for, if in fact the number went down. What went wrong, and what are we doing to improve it, or what are we doing to set that next level as well, based upon our findings as we establish a baseline and then move forward. So
Thank you so much for that. Do you mind if I respond to part of that?
Oh, please do.
Okay, thank you so much. So, one of the beauties of having this and what we've done over the last 2 years is we have academic and social emotional screeners that are given 3 times a year. So, at one point in time, when I first started in the district, we had CASP scores. We would do what we thought was all these great things, but then you didn't really know if they were working until you got CASP scores a year later. Maybe they went up, maybe they went down, maybe they stayed the same. And so, what our goal is, since all of these indicators have a professional development plan associated with them, is to really make sure that we're looking at our social emotional screener data to see whether or the extent to which the professional development we're putting in place is working. Same with our academics, so that we can tell over time in case we need to switch course and do something else in order to make better progress towards meeting our goal.
Okay, thank you. Other board members, questions? Shelley?
Actually, can I,
Oh,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of clarify what you just said. So we would be using the screeners as well as the CAS during this time. So we're not waiting for another year to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, Trustee Ordway. And so, so this, of course, is a dashboard at the district level. So we worked with schools and have been working with schools on having them develop their own goals, of course, that are linked specifically to this dashboard. And they will be looking at progress monitoring data over time to ensure that the activities that they're putting in place are working, or if they're not, they may need to readjust or get rid of them altogether. So there's again our social emotional, we call it our SUB screener, we give 3 times a year, our Fast Bridge. We now for K2 reading, because K2 students don't take the CASP. And so sometimes it's been difficult to really ascertain the extent to which those students are making progress with regard to their reading skills. So now we have a K2 DIBELS assessment that has been really well received, I believe, by our teachers. And so the sites are really able to dig in throughout the school year into that data to see whether they're making progress. They can look at individual student scores, right, if they group them in certain ways. So we feel like we're getting there, like the pieces are really coming together.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That clarified a little bit for me because I was trying to figure out how Dr. Malloy was saying that, some numbers might change monthly, right, on the dashboard and stuff, but then if we're using past data and that's really only a yearly, scores, how do we do that? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Deb. In reference to Dimension 6, what percentage of students of color do we have in our district? Do you have any idea or a number?
Of staff of color?
No, students.
Oh, students of color?
Yeah.
We do have that. I know that the latest data that I looked at was that we have a 30% Asian population, a 30% Caucasian population. And so, and then I don't remember the exact other numbers. But of course, our goal is to get not just classified individuals that reflect our student body, but also certificated individuals, our counselors, our teachers, our administrators, so that they can see themselves during the day and they can see themselves, right? With
Do
in
we
the
know?
people they work with.
Yeah, thank you. Do we know the percent of employees overall who leave the district because of job dissatisfaction? Is that something that we keep?
Keith's department, and I'll let him speak to this, but I have a feeling Hong has these numbers because that's.
But Hong can give us the numbers on our demographics, yeah. And then Keith can answer the question on what we're planning to do to gain better insights going forward.
So for the numbers for students of color, we have 65% in our district that are students of color. So if we wanted to really look at the actual breakdown, we have 35% of our students are white, 42% of our students were Asian. This is all last year's numbers. We had 2 or more races, 8% Filipinos, 4% are Hispanic or Latinx is at 9%. And looking at our Black and African American is at 2%. And so those are our numbers for our students. In terms of our staff, demographics, 70% of our staff members are white or certificated.
Of course, Hong has that at her fingertips, so thank you so much. That's really interesting because when last time we did the district board workshop to develop our strategic directions, those numbers were actually probably 5 or 6 points different. So I think things are changing rapidly. So.
And if I could, Trustee Clark. So actually the number of employees who leave the district overall due to dissatisfaction is a very small percentage. As I recall, I don't have the data in front of me, but it's less than 20%. What I will say to you is that this is the first year that we administered an exit survey for employees who left the school district. So we don't have data for previous years. And actually this year, the survey was voluntary. So we intend to kind of make that a mandatory, if you will, part of the exit process for employees who are leaving our district, whether it's, you know, for retirement, to relocate, or what have you. But all in all, it is a rather small percentage, definitely smaller than 20%.
And in reference to the shared leadership dimension 9, you have 80% who complete the preliminary administration service credential. Is that 80% of the people who started, or
Exactly.
80? Okay.
80% of the people who started. It's a very new program,
Yes.
and there's a lot of unknowns. We're very excited about it, but so we're aiming for 80% completion.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. We do have a couple of speakers on this item. First, Mr. Hoffman. Matthew. There you go.
I grew up in a diverse community, and I enjoyed that. And I grew as a part of that. One of the things that I learned growing up in that diverse community was I learned how to play a pretty mean game of spades in a homeless shelter in a pretty big city. And that's some experiences that you don't get in a classroom, but there's also things that you learn from diverse, getting out of a homogeny. And so I appreciate that goal tremendously. Also, just in the news recently, we've had stories of district employees who have harmed kids. And part of that story that came out recently in the Mercury News talked about background checks and a failure to look after student safety. As much as I appreciate diversity, were standard checks ignored in order to meet these strategic goals? On this dashboard also, I like this dashboard. I like the idea of it. Moving forward and putting this data out there and having this summary for the community. I think it's a great idea. I think a dimension that is completely missing and needs to be added is student safety. Dimension 0 has to be the safety of our students. It was part of the message that that was in that Mercury News article, that student safety is a paramount concern of this district. That dashboard should reflect that. And there should be data presented to the community on student safety on a regular basis, and goals should be established by this board on student safety in order to, with actions, show this community here that indeed that is the concern of this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Nashaboli.
Chai Nasabuli here. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Hoffman. I didn't even know that we have a teacher who harmed students. Why wasn't there any communications to the parents? And what about, if you can please put up that dashboard, what about your satisfaction numbers for the parents in terms of responsiveness? Nothing was quoted. This is dimension 8, improve parent satisfaction with district responsiveness. Nothing, no target, no data collected. Furthermore, I didn't mean to offend you, but the communication that was given to the community when you were hired was that you came from Canada. I wasn't talking about your citizenship necessarily, but you were from a foreign country.
Okay,
That was your work
Can you stay
experience.
to the topic
I
of
am.
the dashboard?
So that
No,
will
you're going
lead
back
me
to
to the
something
fact that
else.
I am offended now because you are calling me colored. The staff just quoted 65% of our students are colored and then 42% are Asian. Now, let me ask you this. Am I the white Asian or am I the dark Asian? Because I know how you guys categorize Asian. You guys include South Asian, Southeast Asian with East Asian and, different kinds of Asians all together. What kind of Asian am I to you? What kind of color am I to you? And why is it that when I'm American citizen that I need to be categorized as color? Didn't we already get this done and over with? We thought about this and one black hero died, Dr. Martin Luther King. He told us, don't judge people by the color of their skin, but by their characters. Why is it that my family, my student, and I are not being judged for our characters, but are being judged by the colors? And you're hiring teachers by their colors. Now, let me ask you this. Why don't I just move back to where I was born, Taiwan? Over there's more people like me who think more like me than you can ever be. Why do we immigrate here? To be like our old selves? What are you trying to achieve here? Why am I paying taxes for you to teach my students to be confused, to be suspicious of their own skin color, to wonder who they are? Why are you doing this? And then you set this social emotional dashboard. Who will be social emotionally healthy when they are immersed in this kind of environment that you give them? Just look at the teachers who are commenting behind me. If they can probably put a bullet through me, they probably would, despite my students.
Moving on to item 9.6, this is the opportunity for public comment on items that are not on our agenda. I'm sorry, someone wanted to? Okay. Public comment on non-agenda items. We ask that you keep your comments within 3 minutes and please be respectful in those comments. I have a number of speaker cards in front of me. Mr.
For at least the last 30 years, SRVUSD has been covered up in scandal. Meanwhile, as I said last month, the district official communications and community relations plan asserts that the district will, quote, always communicate transparently in a credible and reliable manner. Also, SRVUSD is committed to providing accurate, timely, and relevant information to our students, staff, parents, caregivers, and entire community. Unfortunately, that has not happened. The district remains secretive, and it continues to ignore or slow walk many or most public records requests. I do appreciate finally receiving materials from the district's so-called Equity Summer Institute, but I'm still awaiting similar other documents from requests as long ago as March 21st. District administrative personnel were fairly open with information until I began peeling back layers of secrecy regarding the establishment of so-called PRISM clubs, i.e. LGBTQ clubs for 4th and 5th graders, and what were originally required opt-in parental permission slips for those clubs. That reasonable requirement, opt-in, later ended, apparently at teacher demand, and was replaced with opt-out forms finally, obviously the wrong default for young children. Foot dragging or outright concealment is now especially notable regarding the 2 branches of SRVUSD equity initiatives and the harm they are causing. On one hand, these involve overtly racist, so-called anti-racism. On the other hand is what your staff members have characterized as queering the classroom, quote unquote. In particular, in these regards, Superintendent Malloy has fabricated mandates that do not exist while bypassing statutory requirements which do, and while amplifying a false, supposedly racist narrative last May with hugely negative consequences for Cal High girls. One wonders, given news reporting now, if a racialist double standard has also lurked in the insufficient background check and then the arrest last week of biology teacher Nicholas Mosby on charges of lewd conduct involving children. In any case, some other citizens and I have decided that enough is enough. We've just launched an informational website, srvexpositor.com, shown on the sign. And as the sign says, the site will report on SRVUSD nonfeasance, misfeasance, and malfeasance in its policies, its programs, and its practices. The tragic drowning death of Ben Curry, the district's organized defamation of Nathaniel Yu, Mr. Malloy's amplified stigmatizing of the Cal High stunt team girls, and now the Nicholas Mosby scandal, those were among the stories reported so far at the site. Meanwhile, maybe it's finally time to reverse your adoption of the 7th grade textbook, which recommends the thug rapist culture of Straight Outta Compton as a source of change and empowerment.
Next speaker is Nazabuli.
My name is Chai. The last name is Nasabuli. I want to speak on the differences that I'm feeling since Dr. Malloy had been on board. I feel that every time I come to the district board meeting, I am made to feel like I'm an outcast and that my right per the Brown Act seems like I am a barbaric citizen and a like an odd parent. So I want to get it out once and for all. Per the Brown Act, I have the right to be called what I put on the speaker card. The speaker card is a public record. If anyone ever wants to find my comment, they need to know what my name is. I did not put Miss anything. So please address me as what I put on my speaker card. That is respect. I want to address the fact that this morning, when I was at the supervisor's meeting for the county, I'm discovering that a lot of the hiring by our local governments are very dubious. We're having a media director who all of a sudden walked out today, I guess, because she was still appreciating an employee of 30 years. And then all of a sudden she is supposed to be missed. Turns out that she has no credentials, experiences that were listed that really allow her to be hired as a director of media and publicity. So we just hired 2 people, and I really would like their experiences to be disclosed. I really don't want you guys to do inside hiring. I need to know the person who is going to be heading the business offices have never worked in Asia, such as Hong Kong or Communist China before. I need to know the technology director is someone who believes in, privacy for students. I know a Taiwanese family whose records for school has literally been tampered with. Somebody literally registered them onto an app that the family didn't opt in. There is a lot of opportunities for abuse. And I know a student whose record was not as how it was listed when you guys hire somebody new from Silicon Valley and had to come and ask you guys to please do not add something that is not supposed to be there. I fear for my students' future because of how you guys are acting recklessly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, Taylor Dembroder.
My name is Taylor. I'm here on behalf of the San Ramon Valley chapter of PFLAG. We, the board, stand in solidarity with the LGBTQ plus students, staff, and families in our district. Our school year just began, and we are already witnessing incidents of hate and threats of violence against LGBTQ plus students at an alarming rate. A recent GLSEN survey indicated almost 9 in 10 LGBTQ plus students were verbally harassed at school in the past year. During childhood, 50% of students who were out as transgender before graduating high school were verbally attacked. 24% physically attacked, 13% sexually assaulted because of their gender, and 1 in 5 found the mistreatment so severe they had to leave or change schools. As these statistics indicate, the consequences of students being outed or bullied at school are dire. Given the district's legal charge to ensure the physical and psychological safety of all students, we urge the district to take 2 immediate action steps. First, we urge the district to provide adequate facilities for all students, including gender-inclusive restrooms and changing rooms. We recognize that construction will take time, so we ask that each middle and high school campus obtain partitioned changing spaces in an existing room or portable until construction is complete. This solution provides both cisgender and transgender students a better sense of privacy and safety. Second, we urge the district to invest resources in continued education for students, staff, and families around LGBTQ+ inclusion, including the dispelling of hateful myths and propaganda that chronically miscategorizes this community of children. There are SRVUSD community members who consider any education around the LGBTQ+ community to be a practice in indoctrination. This is simply illogical. LGBTQ+ people exist in the world and in the San Ramon Valley community. The mission of the U.S. Department of Education is to promote student achievement and the preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. Eliminating the histories and present-day realities of an entire population of our citizenry is in direct contradiction to the mission of public education. Additionally, if students, staff, and families do not engage in education on topics such as pronouns, gender identity, and gender expression, we are choosing to create an environment which is actively unsafe for a subset of our community. Our ability to coexist relies on our ability to learn about each other. Education provides a path toward humanization. Humanization is the baseline for liberty and justice for all. We urge the district to remember that SRVUSD is a public institution funded by our tax dollars. You have a legal and moral responsibility to every single student enrolled in this district, regardless of their race, class, ability, orientation, or familial political affiliation. We hope moving forward you will deliver on your promise and make SRVUSD schools a truly safe space for all students. Thank you all for all you guys have already done.
Thank you. Next speaker, Kelly Julian.
Hi, good evening. During the last board meeting, a tax-paying community member expressed their concern about the district observing the Day of Silence for LGBTQ students. They went on to suggest that if we observe a day of silence for the gay community, we should observe a day of silence for people with various health impairments, including those that are blind and all others that are truly suffering in silence. As a parent of a legally blind child, I felt that their statement was ridiculous. My kid does not suffer in silence, nor does he lack support from our district or community. He is living his best life. He receives services and accommodations to make sure that he succeeds in school and the community without anyone in the community protesting. No one is getting up at these meetings on a regular basis with visual aids protesting the visually impaired. No one in our community is trying to ban books that portray blind main characters. They do not accuse teachers of grooming children to be blind. Nor is there a group of people demanding that white canes not be used because their children are too young to be exposed to legally blind, as a group does regarding the rainbow flag or picture books that portray diverse families. According to research, the blind do not have a higher rate of suicide due solely to their lack of sight. According to the Trevor Project, LGBTQ youth aren't inherently prone to suicide because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, but rather placed at higher risk because of how they are mistreated and stigmatized in society. They are bullied to death. I fully support the Day of Silence and all the LGBTQ students who feel the need for this. No one should be without support, especially children. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker, Bob Allen.
Hello, board. My apologies that I haven't had the time to write something moving or in depth. I and many of my colleagues have been busy teaching 6 periods, or 20% more than our normal workload. Speaking about myself, with 197 students because of the new student added to my roster just today, no planning period, and also providing tech support on a team of 3 for the faculty, as well as sponsoring 2 clubs, I haven't been able to give any bandwidth to this presentation. That being said, I am here to remind you that the teachers of SRVUSD, almost all of them union members, are here to support all of your students: straight, gay, queer, trans, bi, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, South Asian American, white, black, brown, Canadian, and yes, even Taiwanese, along with any other modifier you can think of. The teachers of SRVUSD will not discriminate against your student, the teachers will not other your student, and the teachers will teach them to their full potential. English teachers, please forgive my less than stellar parallelism. Finally, I invite the board to visit Cal High on Thursday, September 29th or Friday, September 30th to watch the final activity for our statistics unit on analyzing 2 variable data, which will be a Barbie doll bungee jump off the balcony outside of the old gym. Unfortunately, for the wishes of my students, it was determined that Barbie doll bungee jumping off the main building was too dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, moving on to item 9.7, Association President's Reports. Tammy.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Castelluccio, President of CSEA. CSEA represents the almost 1,000 classified employees in this district, which include clerical, technical, child nutrition, paraeducators, and other service providers. Since this is Danny Hillman's last board meeting, I would like to thank Danny for his years of service in this district. Danny, you will be missed. I wish you well in your new endeavors. I also want to thank you for always being willing to talk to me candidly and honestly, for caring about our classified employees, for making a positive difference in our district, and taking care of issues that have arisen and we have discussed. I truly appreciate you, Danny. Thanks. I would like to also welcome Stella Kemp, our new Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations. I'm looking forward to working with her and growing a positive and collaborative working relationship. I would also like to welcome, although Kelly works in our district, but Kelly Hilton, our new Director of Technology. I'm also looking forward to working with her and growing a positive and collaborative working relationship. The staff that she supervises, other than the managers in the technology department, are represented by CSEA. And I would like us to work together to better the working environment in the department and do what is best for our students. Before you tonight, under item 10.5 and 10.6, you will be taking action on our joint initial proposal for labor negotiations to begin with CSEA in the district. We held a meeting yesterday afternoon and the membership has approved the initial proposal. And we hope that you all will approve it as well. We are looking forward to starting negotiations this year and are ready to start working on contract language and bettering the lives and working environment of our employees. I also wanted to share that Zetta Riker and I are having our next follow-up meeting tomorrow. And we are meeting on a regular basis to check in and see how things are going in child nutrition. She's also scheduled regular meetings with the elementary leads to get feedback and voice their concerns from them as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Ms. Finko.
Thank you, President Mintz. Before I start, I respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting tonight on the land of the Ohlone Nation, a people that lived harmoniously with these lands and waters for countless generations. Our ability to live, work, and enjoy this area is deeply connected to this nation. We ask that all in our community, including those in governing bodies, to respect the Indigenous nation, to learn the true history of these lands and resolve to work in respect to build a shared and sustainable future for all. Folks, my name is Laura Finko. I'm president of the San Ramon Valley Education Association, the certificated non-managerial group of employees in this district. I want to, first of all, congratulate Arnett on his prestigious appointment. I also want to congratulate Patricia, Joanna, and Shavante for sharing their talents for a much needed cause. It's admirable what they're doing. And I think that we just need to seriously provide much more kudos to what our students are doing. And Jared, thank you for the highlights on Neil Armstrong. We look forward to coming back and visiting y'all sometime. I want to echo Tammy's remarks regarding Danny, and we wish you well, but I will be personal. I'm just going to just say I'm just in denial. So I just can't say anymore. Okay. Just going to leave that. A few highlights of what we're up to in Servia. First of all, we also are in the midst of our negotiations, shocker. But what may be shocker is that we actually believe that things are going quite smoothly. There's a big difference when we're working collaboratively and focusing on problem solving rather than being positional, and it's showing. We'd also like to note and share our appreciation with the trustees that when board members value and respect the perspectives of the educators they work with in regards to what is best for our students are the ones who benefit. And as you heard with Mr. Allen, as educators, we are committed to ensuring that all of our students have the best opportunities as they navigate their educational journey. And we will continue to build upon the strong partnership that we have because our students need us to. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Moving on to item 9.8, our student board member report. Anya.
Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about some of the opportunities I've had this past month to learn more about the district and some of the actions I want to take going forward as well. So I had the opportunity to attend a focus group hosted by the nonprofit Digital Promise, which was focused on creating an equitable environment and uplifting all students in SRVUSD. So I specifically had the opportunity to talk to both parents and students and kind of share our personal experiences and discuss some of the issues in the district, some of the progress we've been making on those as well as possible solutions we can look at going forward. So one thing that was discussed, and this pertains a little bit more to English language learners, those students in our district, that parents also feel that they should have access to resources that also help them kind of understand the district, and that way they are also able to support their students from home. Students specifically talked about how race and ethnicity are taught at school, specifically in the curriculums of history classes. They would like to see, celebration of races in different ethnicities and more of that incorporated into our standard curriculum, as well as there are times where we have to talk about the atrocities in our country, and then making sure that we're also substantiating that with, or complementing that with some of the ways that these groups have managed to celebrate themselves in these countries despite the hardships that they have faced. So they'd like to see more of that in history curriculums, as well as an ethnic studies class maybe being mandated in the district in the coming years. So these were some of the ideas that we talked about very broadly. Obviously, they would have to be looked at through a tangible lens and be incorporated and looked at to see how they can actually be incorporated into our current curriculums. But I thought, especially since we were talking about with the district data dashboard, how we were looking to improve student agency and voice and getting them involved with their curriculums, maybe this is a possible route the district could look at in terms of history and ethnic studies, because I know that students would have a lot to share on that as well. Another thing is, and I know we talked about this at the board meeting, and I just want to commend the district on the work that they are doing to make sure that teachers are representing the diversity we have in our classrooms. It's really important to students that they're able to connect with the people that are educating them, who are leading them, for their role models essentially. And that was something that was also brought up. And yeah, I really enjoyed attending that focus group. Another thing that was brought up was that some students in minorities don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing their stories to teachers and district administration because they don't necessarily want to fit a stereotype and see that the hardships they're facing and burdens or their peers think less of them because of that. So that's possibly an obstacle we have to overcome when looking to hear the voices of a diverse student body, minorities, everyone. So that's something that I am also looking forward to delving into and addressing. I will be attending the Equity Steering Committee of their first meeting next week. And I'm looking forward to getting involved with that committee, as well as encouraging students from the Student Senate as well as the district to also attend, so that they're able to share their input at the process where we're developing the district's developing their plans and how to address some of the problems that we are seeing. I'm also looking forward to reaching out to equity liaisons and the MTSS liaisons. I had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Sexton from Monte Vista and kind of talking about how students can be more involved with that process and making sure that their ideas are also taken into account for when, educating teachers on how they can be more inclusive, promote social emotional well-being, as well as academics. In terms of some of the issues that students have been facing at schools, the biggest thing is the schedule switch due to the California law that has now caused B period to be implemented. But it's really heartening to see some of the ways that schools are specifically looking to address these issues. I know at Doherty Valley, students brought to administration the problem of shortened breaks, and the administration acted upon it, and I think effective beginning October, those breaks will be lengthened, and it was really heartening to see quick administrative response. With traffic in the morning increasing at all district sites, we discussed this at the previous Student Senate meeting, and hearing the updates from all the senators about how their principals are actually working with them to look for solutions at their schools. That was great to hear, to see that students and administrators are really working together to be able to solve some of the issues that we are seeing. And yeah, those are just some quick updates. So that's all I wanted to share.
Great. Anya, thank you very much for a comprehensive report. Really appreciate that. Let me take one step back on item 9.7, the association presence report. I did have a speaker card from Ms. Nasaboli.
So actually, if you don't mind, I did also submit a card for the student representative. So if you don't mind, I can respond to her first and then track back. That way people might be
As long as you stay on those topics.
follow a little bit better. First of all, I want to thank you so much. I can tell from the way you just presented to the community that you truly have gone out of your way to gather all those voices of diversity. I really appreciate that. When I had raised concerns about our governments and board are giving students, power over their peers, I really want you guys to convince me that you will go out there to represent your peers and not just take orders from your superiors, quote unquote, these board members to please them. So I think what you just presented really impressed me as a parent. So I thank you for that. I want to address on the diversity of voices and how you said that the students who are ESLs, as we called them before, or second language learners, tend to be a little bit more quiet. I want to share with you my experience. I grew up as an ESL student. That's how we were called back then. And it's okay for us to be quiet for a while. And even now these days, I tell my own students, because we're in a diversity situation that is so political. I even advise my own students to be on the taciturn side. And I hope you will allow those students the space and the time to get acclimated to our society and to feel your sincerity, that you truly care about them and that you're not just trying to gather data to judge them. So I think it's perfectly okay for certain students to be on the quieter side. And as far as your representation of all the entire school district, I was wondering if you had a hard time gathering voices from the middle schoolers and the elementary students. I believe the last student representatives had senators from different levels working with him. I didn't hear that particularly this time. So I don't know if it's individual style or if they had given you a certain set of protocols. So I just wanted to raise that. Please stop the clock. I'm done with this item, and I'm ready to start the last item that I was missed from being called. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Hillman. And if Mr. Pitzer is listening, I don't think he's physically here. I want to thank you both. I had personally worked with you both, and I really respect your professionalism. Thank you so much for not judging me whenever I raised the questions as a taxpayer, you know, in terms of questioning, you know, itemized spending. Why is it called like this? Why is it that, you know, it took this much money? And I really, really appreciate you not judging me and, like, you know, talk to me condescendingly like I'm an idiot and I am like just misbehaving. I really appreciate that, and I wish you all the best wherever you go. I don't know why they allowed you to go or why you decided to go. I hope that it wasn't anything we did, and that your next employer will really cherish you because you really are a treasure. Same with Mr. Pitzer. I want to thank you so much. When I discovered that there were erroneous information that were tacked onto my student's record, I was very horrified. And I want to thank you for meeting with me and for sitting down, taking the patience to listen to my concerns and go over, you know, each screen to make sure everything is correct. I hope whatever we had worked out remain that way, and that anybody, you know, one who is new doesn't mess up, because, you know, people can always blame technology, but you cannot prosecute technology. So I don't know what's going to happen, but in any case, I want to thank you so much again for your time and patience, for helping me as an individual and also as a taxpayer and a family in the school district, and I wish you all the best as well. In response to Mr. Allen, I'm tagging his comments.
That's not part of this item, so you'll have to do that another time. Thank you very much for your comments.
Well, okay,
Moving
then
on to
I still have 57 minutes.
Okay.
So in response to the classified and the credentialed employees, I want to thank them. I know that they always work very hard. Sometimes there are differences of opinions, and when they assure the community that they will teach every student the same, I hope that they're not lip servicing, because a lot of incidents in the past have indicated that, you know, students coming from families that have different opinions of your political movement really have been discriminated, and Cal High cheerleaders are one of them. I still remember how you know, like scolded their parents, and that, you know, they were like kicked out or like left in distress or anger. I will never forget that. Thank you.
Moving on to item 9.9, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Mintz. I'm going to start with some of the positive news that you shared earlier that I think is quite exciting, and I'll just go into a little bit more detail. So we did have 83 students representing all of our high schools named National Merit semifinalists. And I think this is really an important accomplishment for our students, again, and it speaks to the commitment of our staff to provide the best learning opportunities for our students. We're proud of all of our kids, and I want to say that because I know many of our families are listening, and many of our students have different strengths and different passions, and they may not necessarily land here, and that's okay. But when we do have opportunities to celebrate, we need to celebrate these amazing students, and we are excited about that. I do think that it's really important, again, to emphasize there are 98,550 schools in the United States of America, give or take. And we are 4 of 297 that have been honored. And to those staffs, to those communities, to those students, and again, I shared this in the press release. I think we are proud of all of our schools. But in a special way, when we hear some concerns that I really want us to address, that we aren't concerned about academic excellence while we're trying to broaden success, I really do need to point to this data, because when you are 4 schools out of 98,000, I think that just needs to sink in. And it's a reflection, I think, of a long-standing tradition of this kind of recognition. And it's a recognition that I know because of our staff and because of our students and because of our community, we're going to continue in this role, in this process. Thursday night, we get to go to Walnut Creek, where it will be the Contra Costa County Finalists of the Year. There are 4 finalists in Contra Costa, and Shavante Eddington from Diablo Vista, we all know Shavante, is one of the finalists. She's going to share with us at a board meeting down the road the speech that she has created for that particular final. And I haven't heard it yet, but for those who have heard it on my team, they said it was so significantly moving. So we're going to invite her here so that we'll have an opportunity to hear her reflections as well at a board meeting down the road. But once again, when you look at how often our staff is honored beyond us, I just want us to think deeply about that as well. Because it's not just that one person, in this case Shavante, who we do honor, but it exemplifies all of our staff that work for our students. So I wanted to start by sharing those important pieces of information. We've heard it tonight. We say goodbye to Danny Hillman this week, our trusted colleague and friend. And we had a party this morning after our cabinet meeting where we served only gluten-free snacks in honor of Danny, even though he told me the crackers that Cindy bought were not gluten-free. Just saying. But on the serious side, Danny, you've served our district with integrity and dedication for 10 years, and we do support your decision to move to Fremont. They are lucky. We will miss you. You're a trusted member of our team and our community. You're a very significant member of our leadership team because of a lot of reasons, but I will say personally, the ability to take in lots of complex information, figure out what it means, and give it back to us in a way that is clear, concise, and actually makes sense. And for anybody who's read the documents that we sometimes receive, that's no easy feat. But you also have the ability to stay student-focused and staff-focused and community-focused. And we're just grateful for you. And we know you're going to be amazing where you go. And we trust that you're not far and you will stay in touch. And we will stay in touch with you. So special thanks to our outgoing Assistant Superintendent, Danny Hillman. I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce our community to Dr. Stella Kemp. Stella is here with us, our new Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. We are excited to welcome you, Stella, to this wonderful community, this amazing team, and we know that your vast experience in public education is going to serve us well. You will be overseeing all operations, business, child nutrition, custodial services, facilities, maintenance and grounds, technology, transportation, and the warehouse. I had to read that. We are particularly impressed by your deep understanding and an appreciation and the way you communicated how all of those significant areas move our strategic directions forward and how all of the people who serve those significant areas are necessary for our work. You said, every person, every function, every assignment is about supporting excellent educational opportunities for students. You were most recently superintendent in Santa Clara Unified, superintendent in San Bruno Park School District, and of course, assistant superintendent as well in Franklin McKinley School District. And we are grateful that you're bringing your vast experience to us. We're looking forward to you starting next week. All the best. We will do everything we can to support you. And thank you for choosing us. And we're grateful that we chose you. I want to make a few comments. I apologize that there's a few other things that I want to share. Within the work we're doing in our strategic directions, I think it's important to emphasize that under our work in safe and inclusive schools is the importance of creating opportunities to assist our students to develop compassion and empathy. And part of what that means, and I know I've said it before, but I feel I need to keep saying it, is because our students watch us and learn from us. And part of compassion and empathy is realizing there will be differences. It's just human. There will be disagreements. We're not always going to be able to see eye to eye. But somehow we've got to get to a place where we're creating space where it doesn't have to move into labels and name calling and anger that's personal in nature. And we've got to figure that out. Frankly, I would believe for our students most particularly. So we're going to continue to focus our work there. I don't actually know all the ways to make that better, but everywhere I go, PTA meetings, community, ed funds, we're talking about this. And the statement I'm making, and I'll share it here, is we're a human community, so stuff is going to happen. How we deal with it is what matters. And that's the only thing I think that we can do to teach our kids how to work through challenges. Academic excellence obviously is our commitment, and we're broadening the definition of success. As I go around, people are saying, what does that mean? Are you watering everything down? Does everybody have to be the same? No, it's actually the opposite. It's every kid's interest, strengths, and passions are honored, and their needs are met. Now that's a high order. But that means we got to have different pathways and different courses and different opportunities. It's taking away nothing from anybody. So we realize that we've got a ton of work to do there because we've not gotten there yet. People nod when we say we want our kids to be great students and happy, healthy human beings. Everybody in a room nods. But when we start unpacking that, explaining what that could mean, describing how that could look, we don't get the same nods. So we've got to figure that out as well. Safety is important, and we got some good feedback this evening. And when we look at our dashboard, there may be some other data sets that we can include, because that is one of our foundations. And I want to make two other comments. One is just more broad because it's come up in this boardroom a number of times. And then I want to speak specifically to the challenging incident that we've been dealing with the last week, because I'm in no way trying to use positive energy to negate the fact that we also have difficulties. And that's kind of out there sometimes. We do get a ton more public records requests. And that is our job to fulfill them. But there's a couple important points for our community that I want to share. We don't have anybody whose job it is to do that. Cindy handles it, but she's got other jobs to do. That may be something, if the work continues to expand the way it is, I may need to come to you and ask for help because it's considerable. The act is clear that when a record doesn't exist, we don't create it. And sometimes the way in which we're asked, there is no record. Sometimes the record asks for a search that is so broad, and I'm not sure our community understands this, it might generate thousands of records, not because the person asking wants all those, it's because we're not working together on what the search could be. We're open to that, but unfortunately we're finding that where sometimes, not always, public records are asked for, there may also be a trust factor. So we're not doing the work collaboratively. We're getting wide searches that generate thousands of records that by law must be reviewed because certain information must be redacted. I'm only sharing that because I know that sometimes it is felt that there is a reticence to share. I've done public records requests my entire superintendent career, and I'm hoping we can get to a place where there's trust that we're all in it for the same reason, our students, that if we work together, we can figure out what the person's looking for, which is first. That we don't generate records when they don't exist, but that we are able to be quicker when we are actually able to focus the efforts. So I wanted to share that because it's probably come up almost every month somehow, and I don't know if we've done enough education on the public records process, and maybe that is a good thing for a coming workshop, to bring the experts in, anyone in our community whose interest can participate, and you could have a deeper discussion about all of that. Because what we're finding is it's really overwhelming us. Not because we're disinterested, we just aren't able to keep up with the demand. And my last comment is, last week, an SRVUSD teacher was arrested and charged on allegations of deeply disturbing interactions with minor students. Our parents are angry, worried, asking how this could happen, and frankly, I think all of us are too. Confidence and trust create the foundation upon which we build our partnerships with our families. And our parents trust us when their kids come to school, and we need to keep them safe. Our parents and caregivers are a part of our team, as are our staff. And when very difficult things happen like this, it also impacts our staff because it shines a light, and we've got exemplary staff, and it's very, very difficult all around. I've given staff direction to add to our hiring process an additional layer to ensure that a deeper dive is taking place when we're doing any type of background work. And I've asked for that plan within the week. But I need to be clear that we do follow the law regarding background and reference checks. But I can say clearly the system that we work in, which is not a San Ramon system, isn't enough. And we did work within the present system where the Commission on Teacher Credentialing approves teachers' credentials. And they do all the work that you can look on their website that informs that. And so even though the law was followed, we've got to figure out another step. Because we know we must hire people of integrity, and we know most of our staff, if not almost all, are, who protect students and support their education. And that has to always be the case. We're doing one other thing. In addition to fortifying our background procedures, we also want to review our processes in this one particular area. When concerns of any type are reported by students, families, staff, and those concerns warrant an investigation, and that investigation needs to involve the district office, we want to be sure that when we say to our students, if you see or hear something, say something, that the response they get is a process that actually respects what we're asking them to do. So to that end, we have engaged, starting today, a very well-known retired human resources professional with decades of experience in public education to help us review our practices, right from the school to the district, back to the school. And again, our purpose of doing so is so that we can ensure that we're doing everything we can for our students. We know that confidence is eroded when times like this happen. And we know that that is something that we have to work hard with our community to rebuild. I want to close by saying that part of the challenge is, and I know that this is probably the most challenging piece of all, that very little can be spoken about whenever we're dealing with personnel matters in the public forum. And frankly, when you add an additional layer, when it's a police matter, it isn't even ours. And in fact, we don't always have any information, or sometimes very limited information, and sometimes we learn it through the media. When it's not our issue, it is our issue, but it's not our investigation, or it doesn't rest with us. And some have asked, why haven't you communicated with everybody? And though we're going to review this, and we're working very closely with our law enforcement partners, I want our board and our community to know that they have been absolutely amazing. But we need to work through that because traditionally, law enforcement communicates and we communicate to those affected communities. And that their communication goes everywhere and then we follow. But it appears that things might be working differently, and we're going to explore that, we're going to figure that out, and we'll keep you posted. So in close, all students must be safe. We will continue to follow all hiring requirements that we have been following, and we're working to add the additional layer. We're reviewing our processes, as I shared, related to complaints and investigation, so it's airtight. And we will do our very best to keep you, our board, and our community informed. Again, I'll close the way I started. It's upsetting. It causes anger, and it causes all kinds of other emotions. We are ensuring that any student who needs support has that support. All of our principals are aware of how to gather that support because you never know where we might need to provide it. We'll continue to cooperate with all of the authorities involved in this process, and we will do our very best to ensure that this never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malloy. Before moving on to our action items, I do have a speaker card on item 9.9. Ms. Nasipuli.
Thank you. I want to, first of all, welcome Ms. Kemp. And I also want to disclose a little bit about myself because most of the time I would be raising questions because most likely your items are stashed in consent agenda, which must be pulled by someone. And when I do pull it, it's because I have read the packet. I'm not trying to create problems or anything, but usually just making sure that we are financially responsible. So please, I hope that we will have a good working relationship. Thank you so much and welcome to our district. And the next, I want to address Dr. Malloy's comments. Thank you so much. I think you just sort of confirmed to me that you are worth the increase that you received because you just gave us a really comprehensive update, even though you didn't do that previously, but you did make up for it. So thank you. I do want to address, though, on one issue about cultural responsiveness and communication. I do feel that for some reason this year, after our school has become physical, that our communications have become very lethargic. Like it's like really lazy. And we almost couldn't get direct communications coming from the top to the parents. Let me give you an example. For example, when school was about to start, you guys had revamped all the website and everything. Nobody had communicated that. And it was a mess just trying to get updates and everything because the website was so difficult to maneuver. Things like that, as a community member, I really wish that you guys would be a little bit more proactive. It would really hush out a lot of back and forth resentment and will save everyone's time. We're all very busy parents. We really don't want to be calling you guys and being hold or trying to get to the right person all the time. In addition, when you have an item, please don't do what you just did, like less than 10 seconds and it's an annual report, because someone like me will definitely call you out. And don't tell us to go read the packet when it is the purpose and intention of the Brown Act to have discussions when indeed you don't even attach your packet. But I forgive you because it's 187 pages. I get it. However, for you to say, oh, it was attached in the digital format, you're really committing two errors. Number one, you are discriminating people who are not technology equipped to read all those documents digitally. And secondly, you're defeating our public law for meetings like this, which we're supposed to, get information from you orally and then discuss. So, but then in the end, thank you so much for giving us a more comprehensive report.
Thank you. Moving on to action items and public hearings. 10.1, consideration of acceptance of the 2021-22 annual financial report, unaudited actuals. Danny and Evan.
We know Evan. I'm going to call Evan up, and he is going to walk us through the presentation, the slide deck that accompanies the detailed report that's in the agenda packet, the very long agenda packet.
Thank you, Danny. Good evening, members of the board, cabinet, public. Tonight, I'm presenting the 21-22 unaudited actuals financial statements. Before I got started, I did want to pile on the Danny appreciation train. I've only been here for a short time, but you've been just super supportive, thoughtful, helpful for me. Really appreciate that, and my team as well. So you will be missed. Thank you. So a quick agenda, we'll go over a little timeline of how we got to where we are today. We'll go through the numbers on the general fund, revenues, expenditures, ending fund balance, and then we'll look at next steps. So this is how we got to where we are today. I wanted to look back really quickly. The unaudited actuals are part of our annual budget and financial reports that are required by the state. Back in June, we approved the adopted budget, and for comparison purposes, there was the 21-22 estimated actuals included in that report. Last month, we came back to the board and presented the 22-23 45-day revised budget that had incorporated changes due to the enacted state budget. And then today, we get to our unaudited actuals that show our financial position as we close the books. I wanted to bring this up. If you dive into the SACS forms, the adopted budget will be in there, and I just wanted to remind folks that that is the adopted budget from June. It does not include any of the 45-day updates. So as we look forward to December, that'll be the first time when we put together our ending fund balances from 21-22, our adopted budget, and the 45-day revise, as well as all of our updated actuals, payroll, our new assumptions for ADA, etc. So all of that will come in December. This slide has our combined general fund revenue. So this is our unrestricted and restricted general fund. The first column, estimated actuals, and then where we ended the year in unaudited actuals and our differences. The deltas that I did want to point out are on the federal revenues. There is a big delta there. They were budgeted to be spent. The way federal revenues are accounted for is you can only account for them as being received if you have spent them. So we didn't spend them. They are carry forward, and we will use them in the coming year. And then on state revenues, the big part of that delta there is for our STRS on behalf. This is an accounting piece where the state gives us revenues and we book expenditures at the end of each year for the liability of STRS that the state pays on our behalf. So it's just an accounting piece. On the expenditures, again, we see where we thought we were in June and where we ended the year. Again, I think the large discrepancies here are mostly due to those federal funds that we did not spend and will carry forward into the next year. And then our ending fund balance. So this is just the unrestricted side. The previous two slides were our combined amounts, but this is our unrestricted fund balance. You'll see the things that I wanted to point out here is there is a decrease in the amount of deficit spending that we did last year as compared to estimated actuals, but we were still in a deficit spend. And so just wanted to make sure last year we were in deficit because of the unprecedented revenues. We're no longer in that model. So this is how we ended the year. And the other thing I wanted to point out is this is a reminder that we're, as we looked back where we ended the year. And then, as we go forward, again, December is the big period where we're going to have everything kind of combined. And we'll look at how the effects of last year, our adopted budget, 45-day revise, as well as all of our actuals to date. And then to finally close up all of our 21-22 in January, we'll come back with our report. And I think that is it.
Good. Evan, thank you. Board members, any questions?
Can you go over again one more time about the deficit with the federal funding? Why are we showing?
Yeah, so in June, we budgeted to spend all of our federal revenues, all of the federal dollars that came in over the course of the year. We ended up not spending them, and so we don't book them as revenue. So we hold on to the claim on those dollars, and we will be able to spend them next year. They're part of our carry forward, but we can't show them as revenue because we never spent them.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing. Books and supplies. I noticed that they're a lot less. Why is that?
So the big chunk there again is our federal revenues. a lot of the COVID funds we had budgeted there in the books and supplies line, and we didn't end up spending them.
And what are supplemental services?
Those are on the ending fund balance. Supplemental is our LCAP supplemental and concentration grant. So that portion of our LCFF funds that are designated for our unduplicated students, those are the dollars that we are carrying forward again to the next year. So they weren't spent. So we had 1.1 at June, and we're carrying forward 2.1.
And last question about the lottery carryover. Did we got more money from the lottery? Or we haven't spent it all?
It's a combination of those things. We did get more than we thought, and we spent a little, and we spent less than we projected.
And that is designated for certain things. A part of that's designated for certain things, and a part of it's
The part that we're showing here is the restricted lottery.
okay. All right, thank you so much.
And just a reminder that we're talking about the annual financial report from last school year, unaudited actuals. And our auditors will be stepping in and giving us a report later in the year, actually next year, 23, about the period that just ended June 30th. I do have one speaker card on this item, Ms. Nazaboli.
First of all, Board Member Clark, thank you so much for asking those important questions. I really appreciate your taking the time to ask those questions. That's what we are interested to know. Secondly, I think last time I wasn't able to make this meeting because you guys finished so early. And so I tried to go back and watch your meeting. And of course, we can't prosecute technology, but the item where the financial report was scheduled, the community heard silence. I don't know what happened. So maybe this one is to make up for that one. So I'm going to ask some questions about what Mr. Hillman had briefed the community before the end of last school year, that you had said, depending on some policies in Sacramento, we would be able to have a certain budget filled. So now I'm seeing a lot of deficit, even though the federal is not giving us what we had received. But according to what you had given to the community, the impression was we will be at balance because we will be getting from state instead, but that's not the case. So then if that's the case, what laws didn't get passed? What happened? So then taxpayers here, voters here, can go and talk to our elected officials and try to get those money, passed down to us. I'm wondering if I'm asking the right questions, but I'm just going back on memories and see if you can give us some of your wisdom before you leave, because that was basically what I heard from last year. Regarding textbooks, someone like me, I would be happy to pay for my students' own textbook if you guys don't have the money for everyone. So whatever you have, you can give to those students whose families cannot afford to pay for it. What I'm asking as a taxpayer is just give me the list. I will pay for it. So you can have those limited textbooks to go to those who can't pay. Lastly, my question is, for the deficits that I'm looking at on this spreadsheet, would it get carried over? Meaning there are people who need to be paid, but we don't have money to pay them. So what's your plan? You're going to definitely, of course, pay them, but withhold something. So what is it that is going to get affected and carried over to the next school year? The taxpayers and the public would like to know. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if I can break this down a little bit. First, the books and supplies category is one of those things that's in the accounting code. They call it books and supplies, but it covers way more than books and supplies. It covers basically anything under a certain dollar amount. And so it isn't about textbooks. So some people look at books and supplies category and say, oh, that means textbooks. Well, it could be, but it could also be pencils and pens and anything else that's a low dollar amount. And so that category covers way, way more than textbooks. So we are not short any textbooks that I'm aware of. We're good? Okay. And it isn't that we didn't buy something because we couldn't afford it. We made a decision, and the way accounting works, you have to have everything booked by that end date, which means you have to order it and you got to receive it. If you don't receive it, you don't put it on the financial sheet. If it is received in July, it comes into this current year. So that's why the numbers are, the purpose of that report, the unaudited actuals, is to look at the actual expenditures and the actual revenues as of midnight on June 30th. And you take that snapshot, you put it into the forms, and we are forced to report that to the state. And the big takeaway from an unaudited actuals report is you want to look at what was projected in revenue and in your expenditure, and then where was it on June 30th at midnight. And then that has a little percentage in that far column, and some of Evan's slides had that on there too. So your eye is automatically drawn to, well, why is something 60% off? That's a great question. And it goes to that federal revenue question. That one was a big one, right? So a lot of the federal revenues, to reiterate what Evan already said, we had earmarked for books and supplies types things. That's why you're seeing it on both sides of the sheet. You're seeing it as a revenue that we didn't book because we didn't spend it, but it also means the books and supplies thing had to be adjusted too because we didn't spend it, but we planned to spend it. It probably meant that we didn't get it out there in time to receive it by June 30th, but we're still going to order it, and you'll probably see it hit the books in the 22-23 year. So I think that covers the structure of the report. As far as the last board meeting, I think there was a technical glitch, but it got fixed, and I think that the full video is back up and you can see the full presentation. If I can summarize it really quickly, when we had to adopt the budget in June, we didn't have clarity, 100% clarity from the state. We made certain decisions to not include new revenue sources in our budget that you approved. We then said, if anything changes, we'll come back to you at the 45-day revise. We did that at the 45-day revise meeting in August. We presented, hey, the state did come up with a bunch of new revenue sources, record revenue sources for school districts all up and down the state using the record-setting taxes that they collected at the state level. So there is no advocacy at this moment needed by anyone in the community. I don't think, dare I say, don't go ask the state for more money. You can still do that. But we received a lot of the funding and a lot of the ideas that the legislature and the governor were talking about in June. They got a deal done. We saw the money. We have now booked that, and it is in our budget per the 45-day revise for this year. On this slide right here, thank you, Logan, for bringing it back up, this increase, decrease to fund balance. When we talk about deficit spending is about, are we spending more money than we bring in the current year? And what this slide is showing is that before these record-setting increases from the state, we were planning to deficit spend by deficit spend by $8.7 million. We still were deficit spending, but the way it worked out at the end of June was it was down a little bit to $7.5 million deficit spending. Did anybody not get paid? No, everybody got paid. The reason we were able to pay everybody is because we have ending fund balance, which for your personal finance correlation is kind of like your savings account. We have been, anytime you do deficit spending, you are spending from your savings account. You're spending more than you're earning. And we were able to do that and support that habit for a couple of years. But it's not something that you want to do. It's not a good financial practice in the long term. So we were able to cover that deficit spend last year using our ending fund balance. And this slide gets into the weeds to show you what it is. You can see in the far left-hand column, June 2022, we started that school year, last school year, with $28.2 million. We projected to end the year with 19.4 in our savings account. With the adjust to the deficit spend, the same starting point, 28.2, was up a little bit higher. We only went down to 20.6. So we ended the year with 20.6 million in our savings account. If you do the math on that, you could have deficit spend at a rate of $7 million a year for about 3 more years before you run out of money. We won't need to do that because the state came through with a bunch more funds. That's probably the quickest way I can explain that.
I knew we wouldn't get through the meeting without your presentation. Thank you, Danny. If there are no other questions from the board members, can I get a motion to accept the 2021-22 annual financial report audited actuals?
I move approval of acceptance of the unaudited actuals.
I second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank
4-0.
Item 10.2 is consideration of adoption of resolution number 29/2223, approval of provisional internship permit PIP requests.
Thank you, President Mintz. So this has seemingly become a standing board item on many of our agendas as of late. The board is very familiar with this. Tonight, resolution number 29 seeks board authorization to hire the 4 individuals listed under provisional internship permits. We ask that the board approve as presented this evening so that those individuals can be hired and placed. Thank you.
I'd like to move the motion.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Item 10.3 is a public hearing for sufficiency of pupil textbook and instructional materials grade K-12. Opening the public hearing, having no speaker cards on this item, close the public hearing. Move on to item 10.4, which is consideration of adoption of resolution number 28/2223, statement of assurance for 2022-23 sufficiency of pupil textbook and instructional materials grade K-12. Christine.
Thank you. This is just our annual resolution stating just that we do have sufficient textbooks for all students in grades K through 12.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
Move approval of adoption of resolution 28.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Item 10.5 is a public hearing for the joint initial proposal for labor negotiations between the Seminole Valley Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 65, Unit 2 and Unit 3 for the 2022 to 2025 successor contract. I'm opening a public hearing. Seeing no speaker cards, we'll close the public hearing and move on to item 10.6, which is consideration of acceptance of the joint initial proposal for labor negotiations between the Seminole Valley Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, Chapter 65, Unit 2 and Unit 3 for the 2022-25 successor contract.
Motion to
Virginsky.
approve.
As the board is aware, the most recent collective bargaining agreement between the district and CSEA, Chapter 65, Units 2 and 3, sunsetted on June 30th of this year. So we're now going to be embarking upon negotiating a successor 3-year contract, which will run from the period July of 2022 through June of 2025. The district and CSEA leadership have worked collaboratively to identify the 13 articles on the joint sunshine, as well as 2 appendices that we intend to discuss when we get to the bargaining table, which we hope will be soon. We ask that the board accept the sunshine as presented.
Unless there's some questions, can I get a motion, please?
Now I'll make a motion. Motion to accept.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Item 10.7 is public hearing for the joint initial proposal for labor negotiations between the Seminole Valley Unified School District and the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Local 1021 for the 2022-23 school year. Open the public hearing. Seeing no speaker cards on this item, close the public hearing and move on to 10.8, which is consideration of acceptance of the joint initial proposal for labor negotiations between the Seminole Valley Unified School District and the Service Employees International Union, Local 1021 for the 2022-23 school year. Mr. Virginsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mintz. So the district is in year 2 of 3 in its collective bargaining agreement with SEIU Local 1021. This is a limited annual reopener year, which essentially means that we are going to be negotiating salary as well as other items that we've collaboratively developed to reopen. The district and SEIU have chosen to discuss an unusually titled article. It's a miscellaneous, and it's basically an article of the collective bargaining agreement that is, so to speak, a kind of a catch-all. Doesn't fall in any other articles, but there are some things that SEIU would like to discuss that are not addressed in any other aspect of the contract. So that's essentially what that means. We ask that the board approve the sunshine as presented. Thank you.
If there are no questions, can I have a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to move for approval.
A second.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 10.9 is consideration of approval of resolution number 27/2223 to designate specific positions as senior management of the classified service. Mr. Jasinski.
Thank you. So the board last took action to identify its senior management positions in the classified service. It's either 2.5 or 3 years or so ago when we created the position of Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations and Facilities. And the first incumbent was Mr. Hillman. Since that time, and based upon this evening's action, there are 2 positions that the board approved that are currently included on that resolution that will cease to exist upon Mr. Hillman's departure from the district and Dr. Kemp's hiring in the district. And those are the positions of Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations and Facility and Chief Business Officer. A senior management position in the classified service obviously is a classified position, and under the education code has to be a position in which it's determined to be the highest position in a major operational area of the school district. Under the education code, anyone who works in that position is afforded all the rights, benefits, and burdens of other classified employees, with the exception of the right to permanency in a position. Okay, so at this point, we're asking the board to approve resolution number 27, which essentially will designate 2 senior management positions in the classified service. The new position that the board has hired for this evening, and that is for Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, and my position, the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. And so upon the board's approval, this will become effective immediately. Any questions?
Any questions, board members? If not, can I have a motion of acceptance or approval of the resolution?
I'll move the motion.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Ordway and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Item 10.10, consideration approval of resolution number 32/2223 for exemption to the CalSTRS retiree 180-day waiting period, Education Code 24214.5. Mr. Radzinski.
Thank you. So as the board is aware, since pension reform in this state went into effect in January of 2013, anyone who retires from the California State Teachers Retirement System has what we call a 180-day blackout period, meaning that 180 days after one's effective date of retirement, they cannot return to service within any public school district without suffering a financial penalty. As the board is also aware, since 2019, the district has served as the LEA, the lead educational agency for the LEAD program, and that stands for Leadership Enhancement and Administrative Development. That's an induction consortium that has been identified, or that has been approved by the state. It's a coaching-based program for the clearance of preliminary administrative services credentials. As the consortium LEA, San Ramon Valley as a district and its Board of Education have to approve personnel actions that are relevant to the LEAD program. For this school year, in order to have a sufficient number of coaches, and coaches are experienced administrators who essentially go through a 2-year period of coaching in satisfaction of requirements to clear the preliminary administrative services credential. In order to have sufficient staff, staff is recommending that the board approve resolution number 32, which will provide an exemption to the 180-day waiting period for 2 individuals who we would like to have coach in that program this year. One of them is our recently retired Dave Bolin, okay, who is still within his 180-day period. He actually coached a first-year administrator last year, so we want to maintain that consistency for this year. Okay, so he would continue this year. And then the other individual is an individual that you may not know. Her name is Lisa Cheney. She was a recently retired assistant superintendent in the Lincoln Unified School District. She lives in the area. She has also been identified as an individual to coach. So in order to prevent both of these individuals to coach, which they're required to commence within the first 120 days of a new administrator's employment, in order to prevent any kind of financial penalty to them, the board has to approve a resolution, and the parameters around the resolution are very specific. So if you wonder why some of that language was included in that resolution, is because there are very certain specific things that have to be included in the resolution approved by the board, so that when we forward it to the state and they start earning dollars as coaches, they're not financially, their monthly defined benefit pensions are not financially penalized. So we're asking that the board approve resolution number 32 to provide that exemption for those 2 individuals. Thank you.
Keith, just one quick question, just to confirm that this resolution is in effect only for the 22-23 school year. So if it were to continue, it would have to be with an additional resolution for the following year.
Well, and again, so both of these individuals retired in June of 2022. So really, we're only looking at the 6 months, the 180 days after that. So we will not bring back a resolution with the name of these 2 individuals on it. There may be other individuals in future years.
So it's specific to these 2 individuals?
Absolutely, correct.
Very good. Any other questions from board members? If not, can I get a motion to approve resolution number 32?
I'd like to move approval of this resolution number 32. Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Clark. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Item 10.11, consideration approval of employment contract for Assistant Superintendent Business Operations. And Keith and John.
Bet you're glad that at this point, this is my last item. So tonight we bring you the a proposed employment contract for Dr. Stella Kemp, who the board appointed earlier this evening as our new Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations. This is our standard 2-year contract for assistant superintendents. You'll note there that it becomes effective next Monday, the 26th of September. It will run through June of 2024. The base salary has been set based upon the assistant superintendent salary schedule at $259,765 per year. It includes a standard work year of 225 days and provides Dr. Kemp the opportunity to opt into the same health and welfare benefits that all other members of management and leadership receive. So you've seen this contract before as well, and we are asking the board to take action to approve.
Board members, any questions? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve contract for business operations.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapen.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Very good. Thank you. And again, welcome, Dr. Kemp. Item 10.12, consideration of adoption of resolution 35/22-23 in support of California's Proposition 28 Art and Music K-12 Education Funding Initiative for 2022. Dr. Malloy.
Thank you, President Min. So this is the information that you requested at the last meeting, whereby you wanted us to bring forward some information that would allow you to discuss how you wanted to proceed in relationship to the proposition that's described there. So we've done that for your discussion, and I'll turn it back to you. If you need any further information, we'll certainly provide it, but this is for you now to decide how you want to proceed.
Any questions from any board?
I don't have any questions. I'm just very, very happy to see this.
Thank you. The one item that I mentioned is in the resolution itself, under the now therefore item number 1. It talks about funding for certified teachers in arts and music education in Culver City Unified and the rest of the state of California. I appreciate that Culver City might need it, but I think we need to say San Ramon Valley instead. So maybe we can just update. But Culver City, you know, they're important too. So
We will fix that.
thank you. Sorry, didn't have a chance to bring that forward earlier. Can I get a motion?
I would love to make a motion to approve the resolution for Proposition 28. Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote, Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
We now move to item 10.13, which was on the consent calendar as item 12.4, consideration of approval of contracts over $50,000. Ms. Nazaboli, you have a question?
I do. So I read the attachment and there were 2 lines for the Chromebooks. And I'm questioning the one that says charges because the second line says purchase. So I'm not sure what are the differences. Are we saying charges for the apps or other software that need to go with the Chromebooks? I'm not sure. And why is it that it's particularly for the 5th graders? So those are my questions.
Okay, I'm sorry, this is 2 typos in a row and I'm very apologetic. What it should say for the Chromebook chargers for 5th grade, those would be new chargers, like plug it into the wall so that the battery recharges, chargers coming out of the technology department. And then the Chromebook devices for 2nd grade is all new devices for the 2nd grade year so that all students have the new machines, because we're at that point in the adoption cycle that it's time to replace the machines. So sorry for the typo.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, now it makes
Board
sense.
members, any additional questions? And I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Roll call vote, Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
The other item is 10.14, which was previously consent calendar item 12.5. Just to make sure, yes. Consideration of approval of revision to the 2022-23 Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP.
Right. So
Your
as a
question.
taxpayer, my question is just that when you are approving a revision pertaining to the local control and accountability plan, are you going to impact me tax-wise?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
I have a comment on this one.
Okay.
I have a request that if things are coming to us for approval of revisions, that we can see a version where we can see the revisions. I think that that's reasonable. The link was in the packet to get to it, which Evan also provided to me, but because of the way our PDFs are scanned, they're not hot links. And so you have to type in the whole thing. And so I just think we need to clean up the access to that when we have items like this.
Thank you.
And did you want to add something? Dave?
I can add one thing to that too, because number 2, it describes what the changes were. Number 1 had to do with this issue of transfers out. And normally in the past, we haven't included those. So as a transfer out, you may recall on the very long budget sheets are some of the payments that we make to pay down our solar debt. It's, one of the interest-free loans that we have. So in the past, we haven't included that on there. We got guidance from the county this year. They wanted us to include that in the paperwork. So we just had to redo it with that in there. Otherwise, the rest of the content did not change. So that's why it wasn't included this time. But we will take that advice back and make sure that there is almost like when we're about to do them here in a minute, where you see changes in language, you get to see the before and the after. We'll include that from now.
I mean, it was helpful how it was delineated what they asked us to do, but I just feel like if we're being asked to approve it, we should be able to see where the change is.
Yes.
Have a motion approved.
I'll move approval.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Ordway. Roll call vote, Student Board Member Iapan,
Aye.
Board Member Ordway,
Aye.
Board Member Clark,
Aye.
Board Member Hurd,
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11.0, informational items. We have several of these this evening. 11.1 is first reading of revisions to Administrative Regulation 6173.1, Education for Foster.
Thank you, President Mintz. So tonight before you is the first reading of the revisions to our AR 617.3. I have our Student Service Coordinator, Dave Kravitz, here as well, but I wanted to highlight 3 of the primary changes that you're going to see in the AR this evening. 1, we shifted our language that's before you to be in line with what our current practices in terms of transporting our foster youth is. 2, we did remove the reference to the high school KC exam since that no longer exists. Number 3, we did add CSB language surrounding the graduation requirements and the notification and complaint section. And number 4, we brought the entire AR up to speed so that it reflects current CSBA language. I have Dave to come on up if you have any questions for the two of us surrounding this AR.
Any questions from board members? I'll point out one little bitty typo. That's just to demonstrate that I actually read it. On page 92 of 182, item 3D, it says down near the bottom of schools in the districts. I think it's supposed to be of schools in the district. The S was put on the wrong word. Just because these are going to be memorialized, figure we get rid of the typo. Okay, and this is just inclusion. There's no action at this point, and I'm not hearing any additional requests from the board, so we'll be seeing this as an action or consent calendar item on our next meeting. Moving on, let me see if I have anything else on this one. No, okay. Moving on then to item 11.2, first reading of revisions to Board Policy Administrative Regulation 6158, Independent Study.
Yes, thank you, President Mintz. This is an update, first reading to BPAR 6158 surrounding independent study. And I'm going to invite up Katie Witt, our Director of Instruction, and Lindsay Castellano, our Alternative Education Principal, to talk with you about some of the changes to independent study.
Good evening, Board and Cabinet. I will make this intriguing content as quickly as I can for all of you. Changes to independent study through the AB or AR 181 included apportionment credit, which is how we accrue our ADA. So what was just work sample and work products is now a combination of synchronous instruction and work products. Student parent educator conferences were required before signing the master agreement. That is now optional and of course available if requested by the parent. Tiered re-engagement includes when not generating attendance for more than 20% of instructional time over 4 weeks. And this is the new aspect that is now inclusive of participation in synchronous instruction for more than 50% of scheduled periods over a month's time. For our students with an IEP, it amends requirements to be more inclusive and not as restrictive based upon students' ability to work independently or need for adult support. And then for our short-term programs, which is for fewer than 15 days, it continues to be offered for planned breaks, no longer required to offer for quarantine due to COVID-19. That's still an option, but not a requirement. Moving into the written agreement or master agreement, short-term program was a 30-day buffer to have that signed. It is now within 10 days of the start date. And for our long-term independent study agreement, which includes more than 15 or more independent school days, which is what our venture program is, that must be signed before the start of that program. And now I'm going to toss it to Lindsay Castellano, our principal of venture, and Delamigo to review the changes to course-based independent study program.
Well, thank you, Katie. Thank you, board. I'm so excited to be here. I think she pretty much said most of it, but what I will add is it's super exciting that we're transitioning from our traditional model into course based, because it really does lend itself to, increased rigor, increased innovation, because the biggest changes that we are identifying certificated people in that subject area that our kids are able to meet with more frequently, and have that expert knowledge. And I think that's really, really exciting. And it's aligned to everything that we've been talking about tonight. So that's the biggest change. She noted the other changes. And then again, just the combo of meeting synchronously as well as work samples. So if there's any questions you have, we did, put a lot of edits in there, so I apologize for all the red. But yeah, we're here to answer anything. And if there's anything we don't know, we'll find out for you for the next board meeting.
And I did want to just say thank you to the two of you, because there's been a lot of research that's gone into both of these. We are complying with what the current law is, and we are updating this to reflect current CSBA as well. So thank you.
Questions or comments? I've got just a couple. First, on page 106 of 182, where we talk about statewide testing results being reported. I was glad to see that it looks like we're now going to be looking at independent study test results separately from just the school that these students would have been associated with. Because I think it's going to be interesting for us to get a better baseline of how we're doing on independent study versus our comprehensive program, and seeing if there's opportunities for improvement on either side of that. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, and we have our own dashboard as well. So hopefully those will be updated. I know we talked about sharing the pre-results, but we will definitely be transparent and want to grow if there's areas that we do need to improve on.
I just want to say that Executive Director Rosenzweig last year into this year, Katie Witt this year, independent study has been a true, I just don't know what to say. It's been intense. It's been changing. The rules have been changing. The policies have been changing. And I just want to offer some gratitude there. And then to our new principal, I can see in 2 short months already an unbelievably exciting direction. And I just can't wait for you, Lindsay, to bring to our board all the places where we're headed, because it's so evident that we are on the right trajectory. So I wanted to offer our thanks while we're here in this public space.
A couple other quick things I want to just address on here. Again, kind of typo. On page 107 of 182, I believe that items 12 through 22 are duplicates from the previous page. I think as former teachers, you like to use a lot of red ink, and so there's some extra full page of red ink. So maybe just confirm if that's true, if I was just reading it wrong.
I apologize. We will correct
No,
that.
no problem.
That was a collaborative effort, and you can see the difficulties with that. So we will make sure that that's addressed.
No problem. The other one was on definitions of independent study on the AR 6158, item 6-5. One of the reasons for individualized student study for students whose health is an issue, it lists COVID-19. And I'm not sure if we need to continue to include COVID-19 as a specific separate thing. It may be within the state law. Just wondering.
Great question. I don't believe it's necessarily explicitly within the state law. However, it is continued to be referenced, which is why we left that language in there. So it's not just for COVID-19, but it still is inclusive of COVID-19.
It's one of those specific. Very good. Thank you. Again, board members, any other things you want to put forward? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Item 11.3, first reading of revisions to board policies, administrative regulation 3110, transfer of funds 3452, student activity funds 3511.1, integrated waste management 3530, risk management, and 7211, developer fees.
Okay. So on these items, it's very simple and straightforward. We want to, as what Christine was referring to in the previous policies, make sure that these are reflective of current law. Some of these, as you look at the last revision dates, haven't been updated in several years, and so there's been a little bit of movement on each one. These are just updates. You can see the documentation, and you can see what the changes are. I think the one that was changed the most was the developer fees, and it was really around the format. They really flip-flopped it. It isn't any really different. I think it's clearer, and I think the language is better. And this is the model from CSBA, so we're putting it forth for your questions and your input.
Okay, board members.
I had some questions on the student activity funds one. So if you can scroll to page 122 of 182, so it's the second page of the board policy. In the second paragraph, it refers to the superintendent or designee shall monitor the budget to the addition. Who are you envisioning, what level employee are you envisioning to be that person to actually monitor the budget? I'm assuming it's not the superintendent.
It's not. This would fall to Evan Miller's position, the executive director, because he would be reviewing all budgets across all funds.
Okay, so it would be a district level person.
District level person. Yes.
Okay, and then down at the next paragraph, it identifies 3 different people that would be approving expenditures of student funds. Board designated employee, I'm assuming that's the same one, right? Referred to above, and then certificated employee who's the student advisor, and then the student representative. But those 2 people are matching in those 2 paragraphs. Perfect. That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on this item?
Oh, I had a couple others.
Oh, go ahead.
On the one related to recycling and composting and all that good stuff, I just wanted to say I'm really glad to see the inclusion of composting in this policy because I think that is an important direction. We need to be getting the green cans in here. I got a whole earful of this last year from a person in my leadership class in the city of San Ramon, and it really is life-changing when you start to really do it the way it's supposed to be done. And she's the trash lady for city of San Ramon, and really the focus is on the green can and not even so much the blue can anymore. And I just think the more we can all retrain ourselves and in our cafeterias have pictures of the items that we use, it will go a long way towards educating our kids, and then they'll take it home and educate their homes. So thank you for that.
I would also point that on that particular one, it's critical to keep in mind that certain state laws requirements have led to some very hefty fines on the corporate level recycling if done incorrectly. And so it's really important that this not just be a policy, but an implementation across the district.
I had one more related to the developer fee one. On page 140, the reporting that's spelled out, that's in the AR, that's supposed to happen in our routine budget reports, or is it in some other way that, Danny, this was the thing I asked you the question about offline. So it doesn't just come up when we are raising the fees. It's supposed to be an annual report of how developers' funds are spent.
There's 2 pieces. So yes, and that how we spend the funds come annually as part of our fee justification report. The specific piece here is about whether or not we take the developer fees and invest them in any sort of way to earn interest.
Okay.
That's when within 180 days, we have to come back and talk about where the funds have been deposited, et cetera, et cetera. We don't do that. So that isn't something that we've brought in the past because it's not an action that we take.
Because it's not an investment thing.
It's not an investment thing, right? So there's 2 different things they're talking about in this policy. One is how are the funds being spent? But then there's also this thing, if you invest it, tell us where it's at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yep. We have one speaker card on item 11.3 from Ms. Bully.
Okay, so this is in reference to what board member Hurd just said about composting. I recently just read an article about composting, and that's why I would like to raise my comment regarding that. Governor Newsom just recently passed a law that allows people to compost their dead bodies if they wish to. And I have a problem with that composting should not involve dehumanizing people's, dignity. And the reason why I'm raising this is because when I was in high school, biology classes had, dissecting animal labs. I don't know if you guys do that nowadays. If you do, would this include composting animals? Thank you.
Moving on to item 11.4, and I'm sure staff will consider that. 11.4, first reading of new board policy 3471, parcel taxes, and new board policy administrative regulation 3523, electronic signatures.
So I'll take the second one first. The electronic signatures is something that is a newer policy that CSBA is recommending. Electronic signatures were a very convenient and easy way to conduct business, especially during the pandemic when things were closed down. And there were certain rules that were allowed for at the state level that allowed us to do electronic signatures. This is the policy that backs up the practice. So we wanted to make sure you got a chance to see it. This is a new policy, so we separated this item out from the previous item because those were updates to existing policies. These are brand new to us, and we wanted to make sure that we called them out separately. The other item is for the parcel tax, and for the parcel taxes 3471. When we went into what we had on the books, we had something that talked about the parcel tax oversight committee, and that was something that this district did well before it was a requirement. But that best practice has now been essentially adopted by the state. And so now this item calls out parcel taxes specifically, puts us in alignment with what the CSBA is recommending and what the state laws are around parcel taxes. And so we wanted to make sure that the previous parcel tax oversight committee item, this item, get merged so that it is under one heading. And that's the reason it's sitting here tonight.
Any questions from board members? The only question that I would have, and it's just, it's minor and it probably isn't an issue. The opening paragraph on parcel taxes refers to the board recognizing obligations to provide a high quality educational program within safe facilities and secure campuses, and it goes on. And I just wonder, that part of it is more general obligation bond focused, those words about facilities. It's not tied to parcel taxes. And I'm just wondering if the wording could be adjusted to not give that, even that impression.
Confusion quite often.
Exactly about how we use the different funds. So
we can look into that.
Again, the way this whole sentence reads is fine, but because that's in there, it's just a little confusing. We do have a speaker card on 11.4, Ms. Nazabuli.
Thank you. I have problem with electronic signatures, and I don't believe I read why is it that you're requesting for electronic signatures when we are, by declaration by the leader of this country, that we're out of the pandemic. So what is it that you foresee that the decision makers with the authorities to sign things into law cannot physically be there? Why is it that this is necessary? And like I said, right now we're moving rapidly forward into a world where people can commit a lot of crimes, but they can get away with it because you cannot prosecute technology. So how do you prevent electronic signature fraud? How do you go back and authenticate later that they are true and in fact, did take place, and it wasn't just a fraudulent signatures that are just placed there by someone who's technologically savvy. So before you cover those loopholes, I ask you to please hold this until you can convince the public why and how you're gonna, prevent fraud. Thank you.
I'll just address that from my reading of the policy, and that is that encryption and those type of issues are covered within the policy. In fact, it even speaks to notarizing where necessary. And as far as why the need, I found it personally, for efficiency's sake, having to sign something that's already been approved but needs now a signature, just for efficiency's sake. It makes a big difference in terms of utilizing the technology that's available to us. And I think this policy helps to make sure there are no loopholes to how it will be used. Any other questions on this one? Okay. In that case, we have moved to the end of our regular meeting items, other than item 13.1 administrative matters. But at this point, I need to ask the board members to extend our meeting for another, I'd suggest 15 minutes. I have a motion to do so.
Move to extend the meeting for 15 minutes.
Second. The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Roll call vote. Student Board Member Iapan.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0.
Great, board members. Anya, anything else you'd like to bring up this evening?
I think I spoke quite a bit for my official report, so nothing to report now.
But it was all good stuff.
I'm glad to hear.
Okay, just a couple of things for me. Attended recently with Rachel the 9/11 ceremony in the town of Danville. It was very moving, and our student choir from Monte Vista High School performed, and they did great too. So attended that, and then looking forward to actually the start of our strategic direction committees. Thursday, I believe, is deep learning and innovation. So looking forward to popping back into that. And I have to give a shout out and also to promote the Run for Education. That's October 8th and 9th coming up. So it's about 3 weeks. So if you haven't, it's a big community. This year it's back in person. So you can still do virtual runs and walks, but we're back in person, and I really encourage everyone, because it's going to be a great kind of back in a chance for the community to get to connect again, things like that. So that, and then lastly, Danny, we'll miss you. Thank you so much for all your work for us.
Danny, I hate to see you go. You have been a fixture for me and a mentor and a guide in all the times at my work and as a parent in the parent community and in all of the committees that I've been on. And you've suffered through many, many grad nights with me as facilities and our work on the Facilities Oversight Committee. You were always so succinct, and you have the patience of a saint, I swear to God, because I've tried them many times. So I'm going to miss you so much. You are SRVUSD to me, and I wish you all the best. You're going to be sorely missed. So what else? Let's see. Ken and I had our meeting with the town of Danville, and we talked about all of our woes and all of our great things that are going on also, and they listened to all of it. I'm so grateful for the partnership that we have with the town council, the town manager, and our police department. They're a huge support to us, and I don't know sometimes if all of our community realize that. They're just amazing. I met with Candace Anderson. I am the liaison to the Board of Supervisors, and I met with her to discuss let her know what's going on in the district. We talked about safety in some of the schools that are not within town limits, that are with the county. And she also talked to me about whether we do food recovery with our food that is left over that our kids don't eat. So that was a subject that I'll bring up to nutrition. I've done noon duty, and it's so great to be at the elementary schools. It reminds me of why I'm here. Alamo, John Baldwin, Live Oak, I was at all of them and had a really good time, and we felt very welcomed. I also did site visits to a couple of my schools, Bella Vista and Greenbrook, and I'm going to be visiting Country Club. And lastly, Laura and I were asked to be panelists at the California Association of Student Councils at the Region 4 Student Advocacy Conference. And basically this conference, it's students from 5 different counties that identify issues that they see in education, and they present their proposals and solutions to a panel. And I just feel very honored that they do research about who they're going to choose to be on their panels, and they choose legislators, educators, board members, and that's going to be sometime in October. So anytime I get the chance to hear student voice, I'm there. So I'm excited about that. Congratulations to our merit scholars, to our blue ribbon schools, and to Shavante Eddington. I'm rooting for you. Thanks. That was a great report. Thank you.
I have been at PTA Council Executive Board meeting and association meeting last week. Traffic's Board of Directors, Laura and I were at yesterday. Looking forward to the Strategic Directions Committees getting going. Deep Learning is this Thursday and Equity is next week. And I want to thank the Servia and district negotiating teams for their excellent work thus far. The collaboration and just the tone is such an appreciated item. I just had to call attention to that. And that's it for now.
For me, just a couple of quick things. Attendance at the Facilities Oversight Advisory Committee with Susanna, Street Smarts Committee. A couple of weeks ago, Street Smarts held their Saturday rodeo for the entire community. Whereas before, rodeos would be held at individual schools. It was a very worthwhile and well-attended event, and I'm sure they're looking to do more of those in the future. A lot of great turnout from kids. The other thing I had an opportunity to do, which I'll miss these type of things, I went to a Boy Scout meeting and talked about the role of the school board member as part of their citizenship march, and talk about what it means to be part of a representative democracy. So I enjoyed that immensely. Dr. Long, anything else you'd like to add?
I think I'm good.
In that case, I'm going to adjourn our regular meeting. However, we do have a follow-up second closed session that was going to be earlier in the evening on employment and discipline of a public employee. I did have a speaker card for that closed session. The speaker needs to address only the closed session item, nothing else.
So my question
That
is,
is the bullet.
okay, so my question is, because on your agenda, you listed a government code that just really discloses your responsibility to let the community know that you are firing someone. However, you didn't even disclose whether it was classified employee or credentialed employee. I understand that you don't want to, talk about the nature of human resources, issues. However, I would like to know at least if it's classified or credential employee that you're talking about. Thank you.
I don't believe we need to make that kind of distinction, and it doesn't necessarily say that we're firing anyone either. So we're following state law in terms of what needs to be on the agenda for a closed session. With that, thank you all for coming this evening.